So
What's up, man?
I decided that intros are like kind of cringe.
Okay.
Because I had listened to myself.
Right. Don't do that. That's like rule number 1. Don't do that.
I listened to myself do intros a few times, and I was like, "What am I doing?"
Yeah.
So I don't do that anymore.
Yeah.
But I will introduce you
Okay.
as Sky.
That is me.
And what is your Instagram?
Primitive Reptiles on Instagram.
Yeah. So the reason why you're here today is because we have your old monitor here.
Yeah.
Articulated.
Yeah.
And yeah, that took a long time, a longer time than I thought it was going to, but it was also one of the like first articulations I did, so I learned a lot from it.
That's good. That was the whole goal. That was the whole reason why I wanted to give it to you and not just bury it or dispose of it. First of all, it's weird when you just throw it in a trash can because I had him since he was probably about that big. So I think he's pushing about what, 5.5, 6 feet?
Something like that. I didn't actually measure it. I did measure it for putting it on this panel, but it was like in inches, so I don't know. Math is hard.
So I didn't want to throw it away. So that's why when I found out about you, I was like, well, I'd rather you have it and learn from it, and whatever good comes from it comes from it. But it's such an impressive animal, man. Owning it, keeping it, learning about them, handling them, building the trust, because that thing will jack you up, man.
Yeah.
I've been bit and my fingers been shredded. The nails alone, I've had countless infections from the nails. But it's good to see it go to some use. It really is. And I'm glad you learned something from it. So.
Yeah. So from what I understand, like almost all monitors, you have to like constantly upkeep like a relationship with them. Otherwise they kind of go feral. Yeah.
They, oh man, where to start with that one? So it's definitely a hands-on experience. I've been involved with monitors for the last, I don't know, 6 or 7 years, 8 years maybe. Before that, I was into big constrictors, which pythons, Burmese pythons was that was what I wanted to do. I wanted to be a top Burmese python breeder in the world. And, well, maybe not the world, but North America at least, because unfortunately people have dumped the animals in the Everglades. They've thrown them away. Fish and Wildlife in Florida has had a huge problem with them. Everybody has probably read about it on the news. Joe Rogan's talked about it. It's a problem in the Everglades. They're destroying all the species down there. Anyways, so the Lacey Act passed, and what the Lacey Act was you couldn't sell or import anymore across state lines. So you couldn't sell anything outside of the California. That was all states you couldn't sell. And I believe I'm saying that right. I might be a little bit wrong because I'm rusty on it, but you couldn't import them anymore to the country. So that limited the genetics of them. It limited the possibilities of breeding and isolating genes and creating new patterns and new colors and new, possibly even sizes. Because you could, a Burmese python probably gets anywhere between 10 to 16 feet. And there's another species called a reticulated python. They get even bigger, but they've been able to isolate it, and I believe it's a locality species. It makes them they call them dwarf retics, and they get about 8 feet. So instead of being 20 plus feet, now you have this 8 feet, more manageable.
Yeah, I always thought about if I wanted to get like that kind of a snake,
right?
I want to get it like on the lower end, because it's like when it gets too big, it's just like, what am I doing?
So once all that stuff happened, I ended up selling my collection. I had about 3 or 4 in a apartment, 2-bedroom apartment, having 6-foot cages in your living room. It's kind of a weird vibe. People don't like it. I had small kids at the time. So I ended up going into monitor. I went into iguanas for a little while. That wasn't my thing. And then I ended up going into monitors, and he was actually my second monitor. Before him, I had a roughneck monitor. And those are pretty cool. They're a little flighty, a little bit weirder, but that was my guy. Once I got him, I knew this is what I wanted.
Yeah.
So that's the story of Dino, man.
Yeah, I remember I'm more of a insect keeper.
Yeah.
Or it's not even insects, but I kept centipedes and scorpions and Millipedes. I had leeches at one point.
Okay.
I had a bunch of weird stuff.
We had millipedes for a little while. My son was
Yeah.
into it. Tarantulas and millipedes.
But so I had like 27 pets at once
Okay.
in my little apartment.
Was that with the ball python too?
Yeah, and I had
Okay.
a ball python as well, an African bullfrog,
Okay.
A bearded dragon,
Right.
and I just remember, I just remember one day I was like, I had like 27 pets, right? And I'm just like, what am I doing?
Yeah, it gets out of hand quick, man. It gets out of hand quick. It gets
Yeah.
out of hand quick, and some of these keepers, they have, even if you're just a pet enthusiast versus like a pet tuber, which I hate saying that, but pet
Oh,
tuber,
that's
pet
funny.
enthusiast, hobbyist, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
Like I have friends that have 1,000 snakes,
Yeah.
and it's how they manage it. I have no idea. Now, ball pythons, you feed them every, what was it, like 4 to 6 days or something like that, and they're pretty much good. They don't eat maybe 3 or 4 times a month. It's a little bit more manageable than the lizards.
Yeah.
But I also know friends that have they have pairs, male, female, of 6 or 7 monitor species. And it's crazy. But going back to the original question of like taming them and everything, you have to be hands-on, but it's not just hands-on. They have to gain your trust. If they don't gain your trust, you're going to have this dragon from hell and they're going to kill you. Well, they're not going to kill you, but they're going to jack you up. They're going to jack you up.
Tail
So,
whip you a lot.
It's a lot of, Kevin McCurley is from NERD, New England. I forgot what it stands for. New England Reptile Distributors, I think is what it is. He seems to be the gold standard, or is the gold standard of monitor keeping, as far as knowing their behavior characteristics, their mannerisms, their stances, their body language for all the species. And it seems to work for all of the species, from water monitors all the way down to Ackie monitors, which are smaller species.
Okay.
Kimberly rock monitors. They have to come to you. If they don't come to you, it's never going to work. They have to trust you.
Yeah. That's kind of how I would talk to people about handling anything that is dangerous or could be dangerous.
Yeah.
When I first handled a centipede, my mindset was, okay, I have to put myself in this position where I might get envenomated.
Yeah.
And so, first of all, it takes a lot of nerve.
It's like, yeah.
But I have to put my hand in there and I have to let them come to me on their terms.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
You can't just go grab it.
No.
Right? No. And that's with like anything. And so if you kind of know like whatever type of animal you're working with, even if it has a reputation to be aggressive or whatever, if it comes to you on its own terms, it's a different game.
Right.
I find scorpions a little bit different because they seem to not know that the ground is you if you pick them up, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, that makes sense. Like, that makes sense.
You can just kind of put your hand behind them and kind of back them onto your hand. And then they're kind of like aggressive, but they don't
stable.
Yeah. But they don't understand that the floor is you.
Right.
Like there's a predator or a prey that is the floor.
Right.
They can't really they don't seem to be able to comprehend that. I could be wrong, but it doesn't seem like they can. So generally scorpions are like kind of easy to pick up.
Yeah.
You don't you sometimes see the people like pick them up by their tail, and that's kind of like
and then
aggressive.
Yeah.
But I've never picked them up by their tail. I just kind of like scoop them up, and once they're in your hand, they're kind of like chill.
Does their tail break off? And will it regrow?
No. So the way the anatomy of a scorpion is that their digestive tract goes through the tail.
Oh, I see.
Behind the stinger is the anus.
Okay.
So that's where they actually poop out of.
Right.
So if the tail came off, it would ruin their...
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So number one thing that you do see with new keepers, especially with like leopard geckos, because I bred leopard geckos for a long time, and I don't know if we were friends when I was doing that, but I
did see some that you showed me.
Pretty heavy on that for a little while. My son wanted to be a part of something, and I couldn't get back into snakes, and I only wanted one lizard, and that was him. So I kind of needed something to bond with him a little bit over, and it kind of turned into me overpowering it and taking control of it and doing this, and mainly having him just change water bowls all day, which is bad. It's bad, but he was also young, and his interest changed to other things, girls and school and sports and
Yeah.
stuff like that. So, anyways, a leopard gecko, I see it sometimes and it drives me nuts. But if you pick it up by its tail, kind of like an alligator lizard, if you pick it up by the tail, they're gonna drop their tail.
Yeah.
And then so if you ever go to a pet store and you see their tail, it's kind of like a diamond bulb.
Mhm.
They've lost the tail. But if
Mm.
it's more of like a carrot shape with like little ribbed ridges,
Yeah.
that's their natural tail.
Mhm.
The one that regenerates, it's like this bulbous, almost looks like a strawberry shape,
Interesting.
and it's weird.
And
So
it's discolored sometimes, isn't it?
yeah, it could be a totally different color. The spots could be stretched out, or it could be
Yeah.
a different line. With these guys, when you're building the trust and everything, like you're saying, you have to give them stability. The difference with them is, especially at this size, they're confident. They don't need the stability. What they need to know is that you're not going to hurt them.
Mhm.
And number one thing that I see when people keep them is they keep them in aquariums or glass enclosures or something with an open top. The top opens, not the sides open, or
Mhm.
slide or whatever. I don't know if you noticed when you worked on him, but up here, he probably had like a clear membrane type thing. And I believe they call it a pineal gland. I could be wrong. I might need to look that
Sounds
up.
familiar.
But it's basically like a third eye.
Okay.
Okay, so what that does is when a shadow goes over top,
like
they
sunlight,
immediately
right?
go like that.
It's for like detecting light.
It has to do with detecting light, but also birds.
Okay.
So as soon as that shadow happens, they instantly go like that
Interesting.
because they know something's above them. So when
Yeah.
you come from the top above them to grab them, they think it's a predator. And
Interesting.
they instantly either tail whip or they snap.
Mm.
So you have to trust them, open the sliding side of a cage or whatever their enclosure is. And either you just kind of put your hand out and let them tongue flick. The tongue flick, which is Jacobson's organ, I believe is what it's called. The tongue tells you everything about their demeanor, what they're thinking, their thought process. If they're short little tongue flicks, they're basically just taking in as much information as quick as possible. They need to know if they're gonna, fight or flight. The long tongue flicks, straightforward tongue flicks, right out the mouth, are the more curiosity. They're more like, okay, I'm comfortable. I'm just picking up these scents. I'm figuring it out. If it's a fast tongue twitch with head twitching, also, it could be a behavior mating pattern that they're doing, mating display, or they're picking up a scent and they're trying to track down what they are doing. That's part of the reason why they're called a monitor. They're always monitoring. Once that tongue goes long and down the side of the mouth, you're in. They love you. They're comfortable. They want to be with you. They want to climb up on you. They want to, I hate saying snuggle, but he would literally crawl like in a crevice of a couch and just pass out because he's 1000% comfortable. He knows nothing is going to happen to him, but that tongue needs to go down the side. It needs to just go straight forward or down the side. Just like a dog. When a dog gets like zoomies?
Yeah.
You can't tell when the zoom is going to happen, but once it happens, they're playful. They're excited, they're energetic, they're ready to rock, they want to go. But, if they're growling at you, snarling, showing their teeth, the whites of their eyes, you're like, okay, they're kind of scared. Tail between the legs. It's all body language.
I was thinking about this the other day about essentially how separate a species is from humans we identify with more.
Right.
So if you see like a chimp get attacked by an alligator or a crocodile, maybe not even a chimp, but some kind of like monkey or something,
Right.
you obviously identify more with the ape,
Right, of course.
right?
Yeah, you immediately feel.
You immediately are like, oh, the crocodile is like a predator. That's like the enemy. That's the thing I stay away from. I represent more of the chimp in this situation.
Yeah.
But even if you take a deer and you put it in the same situation, or a zebra in the same situation, you still find yourself identifying more with that because it's a mammal.
Right.
And then if you separate that more, and I think that's why a lot of people are uncomfortable with insects, is that they're so different from people.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I think that goes into cultural and ancestral and biblical, right? Everything that's scary and demonic and is creepy crawly, right? Lizards, big lizards. Some people just naturally have a fear to reptiles for no reason. Just because somebody once told them that the Adam and Eve story, the serpent's going to get you. Or maybe they had a bad experience with a reptile, so now they think every reptile is bad. I can tell you, in my 20 plus years of keeping reptiles, every bad experience I've had, which is maybe I can count on one hand 5 times maybe, it's been my fault 100%. 100% it's been my fault. And this is experience handling rattlesnakes. I've never been bit by a rattlesnake, but him biting me, it was totally me coming over the top of his head and not paying attention, and he jumped up and bit my finger, shredded it, man. I mean, my finger looked like it went through a cheese grater. It was bad, and he was only probably 3 feet long.
I believe that with
3
the
feet
teeth
long.
on this
he
guy.
bit and pulled back, and it just shredded it, man. Blood everywhere.
A friend of mine, he has like a YouTube channel. He was like a big like centipede breeder and whatnot, but he got into rattlesnakes for a while. And he posted something, and I thought it was just really fascinating because you don't think about rattlesnakes this way. But he had caught a rattlesnake. I think it was like an adult female.
Okay.
And he had her in his washing machine, or like an old washing machine. He turned into a terrarium.
Oh, okay.
And he would open the door on the washing machine, and she'd rattle real loud, and he'd be like, "Shh, it's me." And she'd stop rattling.
Yeah, they can hear.
And calm down. Yeah. And I was like, that is so like I'd never seen something like that.
They can hear, they remember, you know, I used to be able, he never really got the hang of his name, but a little like movements that I would do like that. He would kind of like, you know, perch up, and then I would wait for the tongue flicks before either he would start coming towards me or I would go under him. I never went above him. I never grabbed him. I see people all the time, they put these big gloves on and they just grab their monitors and they just instantly to their chest and try to get them to calm down.
Right.
Dude,
that's not a great way.
No, you do that with anybody. They're going to punch you in the face, man. They're going to do something. They're going to wiggle, try to get out of there.
Yeah.
So it's definitely an art. It's definitely patience, man. This lizard taught me so much about not only respecting things that can jack you up, hurt you, but because snakes, right? Snakes can jack you up, they'll hurt you.
Yeah.
But most of the time, you can get the snake off of you. If you're handling it with somebody else, they'll be able to help you get it off of you. It's really not going to jack you up as far as like boa constrictors or pythons or colubrids, but obviously the venomous ones will jack you up.
Right.
But somebody can help you get that off of you. It's very rare that a snake kills somebody. If they kill you, it's because you're intoxicated handling the animal. You're holding the animal and you fall asleep. It does get a good grip on your neck. Like I've seen some articles where it was maybe like a 20-foot, I think it was a retic, got the guy by the neck, and the guy was by himself. He couldn't get out of it.
Yeah.
Or dogs, you know, they'll get your dog if you're not paying attention. So he just taught me so much, man. He taught even kids. I did a lot of educational things with him, and I've seen kids cry terrified as soon as I take him out to, oh my gosh, Mom, can we get one of those?
Yeah.
And it's like, no, you can't get one of those. Wait till you're a little bit older. But you can get like an iguana, you know, and it just opens the door to so much. And that's been my whole goal.
Even an iguana, though, that's a lot of responsibility. It's no joke.
Yeah, the green iguanas, everybody sees the green iguanas at PetSmart for $29.99.
Yeah.
Don't buy one of those. Don't buy a $29.99 green iguana, because that green iguana is going to become 5-6 feet. And if you get a male and he's not handled and not tame and not worked with, he is going to light you up. He's going to light you up.
And you mentioned Florida before.
Yeah.
They are out there shooting them out now because there's so many iguanas in Florida.
Yeah.
Like people they get on, I don't know if you've seen these people do blow dart hunting.
Oh, yeah.
They're on these boats and like probably the Everglades, if I had to guess. And they're just kind of going around. They're looking for them in the trees.
Yeah.
And they're just taking them out. And then they've got these water dogs that go and retrieve them.
Yeah.
And they've got like 50 iguanas at the end of the day.
All you people that get mad about people hunting the green iguanas, it's necessary. It's 100% necessary. They are an invasive species. They're not supposed to be there. They ruin property. They ruin boat docks. I understand it's an animal. I'm a reptile lover. Most of the ones that are killed are processed for the hides, the meat, things like this. They're not just like shot, killed, and thrown in a trash can. Does that happen? Yes, it does happen. But for the most part, it doesn't. And the state approves it. The state wants you to do that. So anyways, that's my PSA.
Well, that's like Australia. Australia is like a mess.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
they will pay you to hunt domestic cats in Australia.
Oh yeah.
The country itself will pay you to do that. Now, you can bow hunt because like guns are not legal in Australia, but there's a lot of bow hunters. Some of the best are in Australia because they can go out pretty much any day of the week, and there's something that's a problem that they can go shoot.
Is that like a permit process? Do you know? Like you have to apply for a permit, or just
I'm not sure.
Go out there and do it.
I think you can just go out there and do it because the government there gets in helicopters and they gun down hundreds of deer and kangaroos all the time.
So it's like Texas with the pigs.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
And the reason for that is that there's no natural predators with kangaroos anymore or deer.
Right.
The only predator in Australia is dingoes, and dingoes are like a medium-sized dog.
Gotcha.
And they work in packs, but they're not great at, kangaroos are pretty fast and they breed fast, and there are a bunch of them, and there's several species of kangaroo.
Yeah.
And they're going to just go for something easier than that.
Dude, they serve it to you. I've been to Australia about when I was in the Navy I've probably been to Sydney, I think it's Cairns, Brisbane, and all that stuff. But you can literally go into a restaurant and they have kangaroo burgers or kangaroo steaks. And it's pretty good, man.
I had kangaroo jerky once, but they like saturated it in like brown sugar or something. It was horrible.
The only jerky
I couldn't even tell what meat it was. It was so bad.
Man, you ever had snapping turtle jerky?
No.
Don't do it. To me, don't do it. Snapping turtle jerky is wild. It does not taste good.
I also heard iguana tastes good.
I've heard iguana tastes good. I've never ate it though.
Yeah, me neither.
Yeah, I haven't had a chance. I would try it.
Right.
I got to this point because backstory with me, I was in the military for about from 2003 to, I think I got out in 2011 or 2012. But I was stationed in Japan first, and I left boot camp in Great Lakes and I flew straight to Japan. And when I got there, I was not a sushi fan. I was like, where are the cheeseburgers? Where are the chili dogs? Where are, because I grew up in the valley. So I grew up around Big Fats and Pink's hot dogs and Cupid's hot dogs and all that stuff. So when I got there, I was like, man, I'm not going to survive here. I'm not going to eat any of this food. And then I ended up going through a little heartbreak with my high school girlfriend, and my buddy got me out and he was like, dude, let's just go eat food. And I had sushi, man, and it changed my life. So I made it to a point like everywhere I've gone to eat their food. And it's some of it's wild, some of it tastes crazy, but it's eye-opening, dude, because we're bubbled here,
Yeah.
Especially a lot of parts of the country, we're bubbled. Like there's not a lot of cultural food, but anyways.
Yeah, like you go other parts of the country, it's so different.
It's country fried steak and eggs.
And
biscuits and gravy and ribs.
I tried sushi for the first time last year.
Mm-hmm.
I tried like 5 different rolls.
Yeah.
And I gagged every time. Couldn't do it.
Wasn't your jam?
I don't like fish at all.
Oh, okay, that's why.
So like my dad's been a fisherman like his whole life, so he would take us, we get like rainbow trout or salmon, something like that. Cook it whatever way that they want to do it. And my entire life I have just been like, it repulses me. Okay. And I don't know why.
Man, I got to the point where my ex-wife is Japanese, so I got to the point where I was eating like fish eggs, sea urchin, all types, or I would at least try it one time.
Yeah, I'm the same way.
Dude, but my kids are half Japanese. They eat fish eggs like nothing. And I don't know if that's just genetically, like they want it, but they gobble it up. It's expensive too.
Okay, so you said something before that I kind of wanted to touch on, and you're kind of touching on it here with the genetic thing. Yeah. About kids being, or people being like not naturally, but afraid of.
Instinctually, I think is what it is.
Right. So that's what I was going to ask you is like, how much do you think, is it epigenetics or whatever? There's studies about ancestral genetics, about passing down certain things. That's not really proven at all, but epigenetics are, which is more of habit or diet or alcoholism, those types of things. Yeah. But they say that people are naturally afraid of snakes. You see this in cats, right? Like when they see any type of noodle shaped thing, they freak out.
Right.
So, what do you think about that?
So I have I like I mentioned, my son has been into bugs, millipedes, tarantulas. Well, before we get there, so what do I actually think about that? I think it's a learned. I think some of it is a fear, like you're raised with it. Your parents hate spiders; they always killing spiders, so you naturally hate spiders. You want to kill spiders.
It's alien.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
alien. It's gonna get me. I don't know. I'm not educated enough about a daddy long leg, and I think it's gonna kill me.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know if it's venomous or not. It needs to die. I'm
Right.
hiking on a trail. I see a rattlesnake. I need to cut its head off.
Especially if you have kids.
Yeah. It's a coral snake, but is it a coral snake? Because I heard some rhyme when I was 7 years old, so I'm gonna kill it.
Right.
It's the lack of education for the most part, in my opinion. Because like I said, I've done, I don't know, 20 or so educational shows with my animals, not with the company, with my specific animals. And the first question I always ask, and this has been groups from like second grade, first grade, all the way to fifth grade. I've done a couple little junior high things, but mainly first grade to fifth grade. And I always ask, raise your hand if you're scared of reptiles, bugs, or anything creepy crawly. And you'll have 50% of them raise their hand. And I say, okay, whoever's not scared of them, you guys come to the front.
And 25% of them are lying.
And then some of them are lying. So their best friend, you got the one guy who's scared, and the one guy's like, heck yeah, let's touch him.
Yeah.
That guy goes to the front, and now this guy is like, oh well, he's going, so I'm gonna go. And he'll sit kind of behind him because it's his best friend,
Yeah.
But then you do have the scared ones. The scared ones are in the back. And after those kids see the other kids interact with them and pet them and touch them and handle them, and they see this 45-minute show of me explaining the basics of all the animals that I know. I'm not a biologist. I don't know everything. But those kids in the back, more than half of them come to the front. If they don't come to the front, I can get almost all of them to at least, while I'm holding the animal, reach out and touch it.
Yeah.
And once they touch it, they back off and they're like, okay, nothing happened. And then they go back to it. Next thing, I always hand out my email or my Instagram stuff. And the next thing you know, I have 25 kids, my parents emailing me or texting me. How do I get this? My kid won't shut up about it. He's so interested, blah, 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 blah. I hate them. And I'm like, oh, so that's where it comes from. You hate them.
Yeah.
My mom hated them.
Yeah.
It made me want them more. But my dad was the one. My dad was not in my life for that long. I kind of get emotional about that. But my dad wasn't in my life for that long. But I remember him picking up frogs in a riverbed and being like, hey, look, this is a frog. This is what it is. Or a rattlesnake when we would go hiking in, Chatsworth area. That they're not there anymore. I haven't seen a rattlesnake out that way in a while. Maybe closer to Bell Canyon. But he would freehand it with a stick, and I just remember being like, that thing's going to kill my dad. But it was so cool. It was like, holy crap, he did this. And like that little light bulb went off.
Yeah.
And so once that little light bulb goes off, everything calms down. You want to read a book. You want to read a pamphlet. You want to listen more. You want to be hands-on. You want to touch it. You want to go to PetSmart and buy their overly bred whatever. I don't like PetSmart very much, but
yeah. No one that's actually into this.
No, and it's
likes those places.
Unfortunately, that's the mainstream, right? So that's where most of the parents go, most of the kids go.
Yeah.
But anyways, that's where I think it comes from. I think it's a learned thing. I think there is a little bit part of a cultural or genetic, biblical, like I was saying, religious factor to it of the fear. But who has the real answer to that? It's all assuming for the most part. Like my wife doesn't want to do anything with it, but she married me. So now these things are in my thing. And how many times have I gotten a call where your stupid lizard got out of the cage? And I'm like, all right, babe, calm down. This is what you got to do. I'm not touching it. I'm just going to close the door. I'm like, you can't do that because it's going to get under a bookshelf and I got to remove the bookshelf.
Right. Yeah.
And she'll get the gloves and she'll grab it real quick and walk over there and put it in the cage. And she's just freaking out the whole time. And she cries sometimes. But for the most part, I think she's learned by being with me that they're not going to kill you. They're not going to hurt you. Are they scary? Do they wiggle? Do they bite? Of course. Everything does. So does a dog.
Yeah.
But
dogs, I think in North America, kill more people than any animal.
Yeah.
I think mooses maybe second.
It might be, yeah.
And that's just like an exposure thing.
Right.
It's like there are more dogs around people at any given time than any other type of animal. And so, yeah, statistically, that's the most likely thing.
Yeah.
But people don't think of it that way. And I think I'm more like on your perspective of it's a learned thing. because yeah, almost everything you hear about spiders or snakes or whatever isn't true.
Yeah.
It's like a myth. And then I remember someone told me once, I've bred cockroaches for a long time for
Okay.
different things, for feeders
Feeders.
mostly. And they said, oh, if you like lick envelopes or something.
Oh yeah, that the eggs will hatch in your tongue. Or
Yeah,
something.
like cockroach
Yeah.
eggs will like hatch in your tongue or
Yeah,
something like that.
yeah.
I'm like, do you understand how cockroaches breed?
Yeah,
Because
I might have been one of those people who thought that.
yeah, because like they most of the time they have an oothka, which
Okay.
they drop, which is like an egg that has a bunch of babies inside of it,
Right.
and it's like pretty big,
Like a spider egg sac.
no, it's much smaller. It has kind of rivets in it.
Okay.
It's kind of brown.
Okay.
But there are several species of cockroach that actually keep the oothka inside, and they kind of incubate inside the female.
Got you. Okay.
So they're born outside of the female, so it looks like they're having a live birth.
Okay.
But what's actually happening is the oothka's hatching inside them,
I see.
and they just keep them in there until they hatch.
Okay.
And then once they all hatch, then they dispose.
Does the female die?
No.
Oh, that's crazy.
No. Yeah.
Well, see, that's what I'm talking about. Like, people don't know that. So people, or you think cockroaches are nasty because we've heard that they are nasty. Now they do have bacteria. Don't be licking them.
I think it's
But-
like cockroaches are as dirty as their environment, and because they're around human trash,
Yeah.
people associate them with trash.
Right.
But like I've bred like 6 different species of cockroach. Like I've gotten like 3 different morphs from Madagascar, which people are generally nicer about those
The
ones.
hissing cockroaches.
Yeah, big
Yeah.
hissing cockroaches. So I've had black tiger morphs, which are just like jet
Okay.
black ones.
Okay.
I've had the standard ones, which is like what you'd probably know about, and then there's Halloween ones, which are kind of like a tan and brown striped mix.
Okay.
And they're a little bit smaller. But yeah, and I've handled them. I've never in my life been bitten by a cockroach.
Yeah.
And cockroaches, you can actually be aggressive with. You can just like pick them up and like hold them in your hand and then like take them wherever you're going to take them, feed
Yeah.
them to whatever.
Yeah.
And I've never in my life been bitten by one,
No.
even in that scenario where
Yeah.
I'm not even being particularly gentle. But people are so afraid of them.
Right.
And that isn't even something that makes sense to be afraid of in any sort of scientific way.
Right.
Other than maybe the being around trash and whatnot, but it's like, I don't know, because Madagascar roaches they eat fruit mostly,
Okay.
because they're from a tropical island. And yeah, so there's so many things that are associated with scary animals
Yeah.
that are just not true at all.
Well, yeah, that's where I was gonna go with my son. So my son has always been kind of interested more in like, well, he took a weird turn, and he one time we were at a reptile expo in Pomona, and it was a reptile super show, and which I recommend if anybody wants to go check it out. That's a great place to go to, great place to find deals, great place to get animals and educated. He wanted millipedes, and I was like, well, let's figure out what it is, because I didn't know. And then he flipped and he wanted tarantulas. And I was like, okay, tarantulas is kind of like where I draw the line. And it wasn't that I was scared of them. I was like, man, is it true if you get bit by them, you die? Like, but then you do some research and you see people handling them all the time. Now you can die if you have an allergic reaction to it.
Yeah.
But I don't think many people really die from tarantula bites.
It's so uncommon. And like if I go back to like centipedes, for example, there has been a few deaths by centipede, but it's very, very uncommon. It's usually someone who's elderly and allergic, or a child and allergic.
Yeah, you
like
gotta
you have
be
to have like
allergic.
this really bad combination. And for the most part, centipedes just hurt extremely bad when you get bit by them. It's more of a pain type of a venom than it is a you're gonna die from.
So it's like a beaded lizard or like a Gila monster.
Yes, yeah.
So Gila monsters, I don't know much about them, but I know the beaded lizards. Those two are the only, I guess, venomous lizards. If a beaded lizard bites you, if you have an allergic reaction, you're probably going to pass away. But you won't know until you get bit. Nobody's getting tested for it. But the pain, I've heard the pain is like smashing your hand with a sledgehammer, and it's just throbbing, nonstop throbbing for 4 or 5 days. I don't know if that's true, depending on how big that lizard is. I think they get about, I don't know about that big,
Yeah.
maybe a little smaller. but they're so cool.
Yeah.
They're so cool. And I know people who keep them, and they're super tame, and like, again, you gain the respect from the animal, and you know how to, you know, the patterns of the animal, you know which animal is, you know, is more I guess what, not wild, but more uppity, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Some of them are more docile. So anyways, yeah, but it
Yeah,
just,
they just have a more relaxed demeanor.
right. Right. Yeah, it's pretty crazy. It's pretty crazy all the stuff that's out there. You know, being a keeper as long as I have, it's pretty crazy all the things that people write you. Oh, is it true that if I put this turtle in a little fish bowl, it's not going to grow any bigger than that? No, that's not how that works. Like, that's not how that works. The thing's going to keep growing.
Yeah.
You're eventually, you know, especially red ear sliders, right? We all know red ear sliders. People they grow too big, and people take them to the park and put them in the pond at the park because they think it's great, right? Well, it comes down to the responsibility of the shop owner. The shop owner, the shops that do that, they're hurting for money.
Yeah.
There's no money in being a small reptile exotic pet business owner. There's no money in it. It's really hard. You make most of your money on feeders and supplies. So you're hoping that you sell this person an animal, and they come back for the next 4 years buying lights, feeders, and substrate, bedding, decorations. The ones that are hurting for money, they will tell you that the snake will only grow as big as the cage. That's not true. If you have a Burmese python, you put it in a 4x2x2, that thing's gonna outgrow that. It's not fair to the animal. It depends on the species.
Yeah.
And I've heard horror stories, man. I've heard a lot of horror stories. When I was in San Diego, this guy, I don't know where he bought an alligator from, but he bought an alligator, and it was sold to him as a caiman.
I don't think you can even have caimans in California,
No, you
right?
can't.
You can't have like
No.
any sort of a crocodile.
No. So it was sold to him as a caiman. So eventually it just kept growing, and he had an alligator. He let it go in the waterway system. And I believe he got caught. And it's like, and I think when he got caught, he told the authorities that it was sold to him as a caiman, and he was told the caiman will only get 3 or 4 feet.
Doesn't even matter. Like, well, first of all, because one of it's illegal, but second of all, when you release something like that in California, like, this is something that I think about because like I go trail running and hiking and whatnot. I think, oh, you know, there's no alligators here, there's no crocodiles here, so if I run into a pond or any sort of body of water, I'm not thinking about it.
No.
But if I was in an area where it was,
Yeah.
I 100% would be thinking about it, and I'd be way more cautious about it. And so if someone's releasing an alligator in California, it's like you're putting other people in danger.
Right. I don't know if this is true. I never actually read the article about it, but in the Mojave Desert, somebody was out there off-roading and found a skeleton of a big sulcata tortoise, like a full-grown one.
Wow.
And okay, sulcatas are bulldozers, man. They will plow through the stucco on the side of your house. They will ram your fence until it bends and they want to get out. They will dig holes under your cinder block walls. They will shatter your patio glass. Wherever they want to go, they're going to go. They're not going to stop. So I know I had 4. Well, I had 4 of them. Now I have 2 of them. But I don't know if this one got out or if somebody released it because it got too big. But they are sold as little $50 hatchlings, about that big. And everybody goes, oh, they're so cute. My son's going to love it, you know? Not knowing that this thing is going to be, you know, possibly, I don't know, that round, maybe a little bit smaller, 200, 300-pound animal. Most people can't take care of that. Not only that, the lifespan.
Most people can't even take care of a chihuahua.
Or a cat. Yeah, you know. So that's what gives the reptile industry a bad name, and that draws the negativity to it, where we get things passed like the Lacey Act. And I even heard a rumor, I have no idea if this is true, but have you ever heard that red ear sliders can't be sold at a certain size because they produce salmonella, but if they're above that, they don't?
No, I haven't heard that.
So I believe it's a $50. I don't know how true this is. I've never really done any research on it, but this is what I've heard. But you can't buy a red ear slider if it's smaller than a $50 in California, because some senator's son supposedly put it in his mouth and got sick. I don't know how true that is, but that's how stupid laws get passed.
Right.
Because uneducated people, or not being supervised while handling the animals, or not getting the proper permits or the proper enclosure, the proper cage. You saw his cage, man. I mean, it was a little overkill. I built this big, I don't even remember the dimensions of it. I think it was 8 by 6 by 5, I think, with a 150-gallon pond. My father-in-law, thank God, when he was alive, he passed away, but he was willing to take on the task, and he welded the frame. We made the panels wood so we can change them out because we need to keep the humidity high. We didn't want the wood warping. But I made sure that I had a lock on the top, a lock on the bottom, and a key lock, because I didn't want my kids to come home, even though they know how to handle him and deal with him. I didn't want my kids to come home with their friends and be like, oh, you want to see my lizard? And take them out. And next thing you know, my lizard's biting a kid in the neck.
Right.
It comes down to proper handling, care, technique, understanding, research, education, resources, money, man. That cage cost me about $1,700 to build. Not everybody has a $1,700 budget for a $150 lizard. Yeah, a little tangent right there, but
I think that kind of, you were saying about making money as a breeder.
yeah,
I think that's why you see these people who are breeding bearded dragons and ball pythons
yes,
as being pretty successful,
right,
because they're a smaller type of animal.
yeah,
Like, I think they say bearded dragons are the most social lizard
Yeah.
as well. And they're pretty easy.
Yeah.
You can definitely mess up if you don't pay attention and try to understand the animal and whatnot, especially if you do like communal stuff with them. But
number one problem with them is they get too fat.
oh, really?
They get too fat, or they don't use the proper UVB. I think it's UVB. I don't know if they need the A, but
Some type of lighting.
they get a metabolic disease from.
I had a little baby that died from some lighting I was using
Mhm.
that got recalled.
Right.
And I looked at it and I was like, oh, this got recalled, because I couldn't figure out what was wrong with him.
Yeah.
He seemed totally normal for a while. And
That's what happened to the other monitor that you worked on. I forgot what the process was called. But when I got him, he was only 3 months old, and I had a bad UVB bulb. And the UVB bulb, it was a power sun bulb, and it was putting out, I think too much of the UVB, and it basically gave him like welder's eye. And welder's eye is, for people who don't know, it basically burns the top layer of your eye, and it feels like it's itchy all the time, and it burns, and you can't open your eye long enough to see things, and that causes stress on the animal. So once that happened, I couldn't get him to eat.
Yeah.
But I didn't know that happened. I thought it was a parasite.
Yeah.
And so he passed away, and then that's how you got him and were able to do your process with him. And then I ended up getting the 2 that I have now.
Yeah.
So the 2 that I have now, it happened again with the first one. It happened again, and I was able to catch it. And thank God I was able to get it to a vet and get some eye drops and stuff like that. And now I know not to use that bulb.
Yeah. That's such a lesson of hard knocks too.
Yeah, because not to bring the money into it, but that animal cost me about $420 with shipping and everything.
Yeah.
So
I had a centipede from the Galapagos, Scolopendra gallipanesis.
Okay.
It's one of the largest species. I paid $400 for that centipede.
wow.
Yeah.
Dude, that's crazy.
Yeah.
But even like these guys, he was $150. It was a normal, what they call a wild type Asian water monitor. But now, because of breeding and socializing and what do they call it? Like F1, F2, the generations of the breeding, a normal one is anywhere like 1,500, 2,000 maybe, and then you get into the morphs, right? Which you get the albinos and you get all that other stuff, and then you're up into 10,000 real quick. Yeah, the genetics on them are pretty wild.
Yeah, have you been seeing these? I think this is new, but I'm not super educated on this, and I wouldn't say I'm a reptile person.
Right.
I just kind of got into it a little bit.
Yeah.
But they're these bearded dragons that are like black and red.
Yeah.
I can't remember what they call them, but it looks almost like a fantasy dragon.
Yeah.
The coloration, and they have these deep orange eyes and everything. Really, really pretty looking.
Yeah, I know they have a morph called a Zero, which I think is like a all white one. with
Yeah, I've
with red
seen that.
eyes, I think.
Okay.
The morphs get super crazy. With snakes, it's pretty simple.
Mm.
And then you get into the poly was it polymorphic?
Yeah, polymorphic means
There's like
many
heterozygous.
coloration or
Yeah.
morphs, because
Yeah.
there's a centipede that lives in this area actually called Scolopendra polymorpha,
Okay.
and it just means it has many morphs because some of them are kind of a tannish color, some of them are blue.
Right.
So, but it is the same species.
Right. So yeah, it's dude, it's just so much. It's so much information, man. It's
Yeah.
so many. And one thing too that I see with the reptile industry is somebody buys one of these or just a regular bearded dragon from PetSmart or Petco or whatever, and then they do a little bit of research,
Yeah.
and then they find out about the morph side, and all of a sudden the animal that they bought that originally sparked the curiosity is now worthless because they want that $200 albino.
Right.
Or they want that $500 leucistic.
Right.
Or they want, whatever, the reverse striped banana bread.
The
whatever.
ball pythons are the ones that I kind of have concerns with because there's so much like oversaturation of breeding them, and you see, what is it? I don't know if there's a name for it, where they can't read distance properly, so they strike wrong, and they miss a lot. There's something about their spatial awareness that's off.
So the one that I'm aware of is the spider gene. And the spider gene, I believe, is actually outlawed in the UK, the last time I heard. So the spider gene as a neurological issue. And some people said they've bred it out and it's not going to happen. And some people says it's always there. Just where are you at with it? Is it minor or is it severe? Some of them, they can't gauge. I had one. Actually, I think when you brought yours over to me before you moved, I had what they call it a bumblebee, which is a pastel spider ball python, and she had a corkscrew. So when she would strike, she actually turned to catch it, and she would miss all the time.
Yeah.
And I would have to get it super close to her, and sometimes she would miss and then coil over it. Where that's dangerous too, because if you're feeding live, which some people feed live, some people feed frozen thawed.
If you're feeding with your hand.
Or your hand.
Yeah.
But if you're feeding a live rodent and the rodent bites the snake in the eye,
right.
Now you're in a whole nother world. You got to go to the vet. You got to do all this stuff, and that gets expensive.
Yeah, and that's why I trained mine. I trained her on live as well as frozen.
Yeah.
And when I started her on frozen thawed stuff, and I would just make sure I'd make her really fight for it, and then I would every so often give her a live one.
Yeah.
Because I wanted her, no matter if she was with me or wherever she was, I wanted her to be able to feed herself.
She's actually doing good, man. She's with my buddy up in Vegas. So
yeah.
A couple months after you gave her to me, I got her. I was feeding her. She was fine. And then my buddy, I was able to get her shipped out there to him. He was supposed to come down and pick her up, but we couldn't make it work. But right out the box, man. She's doing great.
Yeah.
So
that's good.
Yeah. He's got into the breeding of the ball pythons and stuff, and unfortunately, I don't think the ball python breeding industry is even close to being done. Like, they're not hitting a wall with the genetics. There's new genetics every year. There's new patterns and new colors, and then the combos of it all. So you're not just doing one albino. You're doing an albino pastel, blah, 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 blah. The list goes on. Now when I got into ball pythons, I think the most that people were doing maybe 3 genes in one animal, 3 or 4 genes. And now you're getting 6, 7, 8, I don't know if they're in the 8s now, but I know for sure they're 6, 7. And it's endless. There's a breeder called Justin Kabelka, and it was Justin Kabelka and Brian Barczyk. Everybody knows Brian Barczyk. I'm sure you've seen some of his videos.
I probably have seen. Yeah.
He passed away.
Did he really?
Yeah, he had pancreatic cancer, man. And he eventually passed away. But because of him and others, Tom Crutchfield, Jay from Prehistoric Pets, the list goes on. Those people built the foundation for us to be here today.
Yeah.
And it's endless, man. From where they started, 1 or 2 gene animals, isolating genes and stuff like that, to now it's night and day difference. Husbandry is night and day difference. Caging, the entertainment side of it, the podcast, is all evolved because of them. But it's not done. It's not. Yeah. It's never gonna end, man.
Yeah, that's interesting because like you look at something like a ball python in nature. They're from Africa, I believe,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So
Ghana.
you see them and you don't think like they could have all this like
No.
genetic difference inside them. It's pretty fascinating.
Yeah, I mean, not to me, not to tie it to humans,
Hmm.
but think about how crazy we can get, man.
Right.
If we weren't so caught up on, you know, I guess that gets into like race stuff, but dude, you can go. I mean, generations of like my kids are half Japanese, half whatever I am, right?
Yeah.
So assuming my kids, let's say they marry, an African American or somebody.
Hmm.
Now you have a white Japanese African American, and then
Hmm.
their kids marry somebody, and what is that going to look like?
Right.
That's wild, man. And you have people who are Asian now with red hair,
Yeah.
which is pretty crazy.
Mhm.
And it just doesn't, I don't know if it ends. I don't know at what point it ends, but it's that's what sucks everybody in. They all start at PetSmart and then they end at the reptile show with 1,000 snakes 4 years later. That's
Yeah,
where
yeah.
it ends.
Yeah, well that's what actually got me into preserving was I had 27 pets
Yeah.
and because I had a lot of insects or things that don't have super long lifespans generally,
Right.
centipedes can live for like 7.5 years or so, which is
Right.
pretty long for something like that,
Yeah.
an invertebrate.
Yeah.
But I would have things that would die either due to me learning how to try to care
Yeah.
for that animal, and you know, with centipedes, they come from all different types of places of the world,
Right.
and so you have ones that are from Africa, you have ones that are from the Philippines or these other tropical regions. You have some from here, Southern California, and so if you have something closer to your area, it's going to be easier
Yeah.
to maintain.
Right.
But yeah, so there was a lot of trial and error of me just like learning how to care for these things. But I would have all these pets that would die, and I'm like, I don't want to throw this away.
Yeah.
So I would learn how to pin them and frame them or whatever it was. My bearded dragon that passed away, I put her in a big jar. I
Yeah.
embalmed her about 4 or 5 years ago now. She looks the same as when I put her in there.
Yeah. I think you, depending on, well, how would you say that? So with him, right?
Hmm.
When he passed away, I think I threw a hammer. I threw a hammer in my garage and I cried.
Yeah.
But it wasn't that I can't get another one.
Hmm.
I don't have the time for another one. It's I failed him.
Hmm.
I failed him. I wasn't able to provide the right enclosure and the right temperature settings because the pond, I needed a pond heater and I didn't even freaking think of it. I didn't think of it because I was new to the Antelope Valley. I didn't know the temperature swings. The cage was in my garage. I figured the heat lights were enough, and I failed. And actually, the day that we realized he passed away, he passed away in the pond. Me and my wife went to Lowe's to get insulation for the cage, and I swore that I saw him moving, and I think he was dead at that time. But we went, got the insulation, came back, started putting insulation on the cage, and then I just happened to glance in the pond, and I was like, he's in the same position that he was when we left. And when I went to pick him up, man, he was gone, dude. And so that's what hurt me is that I failed him. I'm the responsible one. I'm the keeper. He had no choice to be either hatched in captivity and sold or taken out of the wild as an egg.
Yeah.
What I think they call that farm raised, farm hatched or whatever. Or he was wild caught as a hatchling and
Yeah.
sold. So he would have did just fine in Thailand or wherever that species is from. But here in the Antelope Valley, I failed him, and that's what did me in, dude. That's what did me in. Same with the little guy. The little guy too. It was like, man, I was so excited to get the species. I was brand new to the Quince monitor. I was really excited. Not many people were keeping them. My wife told me to go ahead and get another one. I told her, no, I think I'm done. And then I found them and I was like, okay, cool. This is something that I might be able to work with. They're a little bit smaller. I can deal with it. And then he died. And I was like, what the hell am I doing wrong? What the hell am I doing wrong? Why is this happening?
And sometimes you can Google and you can search around,
Yeah.
and there's not an answer.
Yeah. So that's why on my page, on my page, I've tried to bring my experience to life on my page, right? And be as open as possible about my failures, open as possible about what I've learned, open as possible about my handling, everything.
Yeah, and it's tough because, someone like you, or when I was working with a lot of centipedes back in the day, and people ask you about it, and they talk to you about maybe getting something of their own, and they're kind of looking to you as like an example and like trusting your information.
Right.
And you're like, man, sometimes I just don't know.
Yeah.
Sometimes I'm wrong. And that Scolopendra galbanisis that I was on a waiting list for a year because they have to find them.
Oh yeah, I think I
in
remember
the
you telling me
wild.
that. I remember you telling me about that. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I was on a waiting list for a year, and I probably only had her for a year and a half when she passed away.
Right.
And if I had to guess, because I don't know,
Right.
it might be partly the environment is much different than the Galapagos where I was keeping her. And I wasn't making a point to go out of my way to feed her. I was just I had her in a 40-gallon.
Okay.
And I was letting her kind of roam around and find food. And I think that was a mistake because because cockroaches they're sneaky. So sometimes they can't find them.
Right.
And I think that maybe that was the mistake that I made, because when I had found that she had died, I found several cockroaches too that were alive, that were just kind of running around.
Okay.
And I was like, man, she probably didn't find them.
Okay, so you said that came from the wild, and I hope you don't mind me asking your opinion on it, but some people have crazy views, and I think for the general population, they don't understand that most of these animals are wild caught and are taken from the wild and sold in the animal trade. We do our best as keepers to keep them captive bred. Do you have an opinion on that? Do you think that should stop? Do you think that we need to get to a point to where there are breeding populations of every species that we can in Australia, North America, whatever?
I would say for the stuff that is really common, yeah. The problem with centipedes is there's 2 people that I know in the United States that even know how to breed them.
Right.
And you have to actually go through a strenuous process to even figure out what sex they are.
Right.
So there's a process.
You gotta put them in water or something?
Water logging.
Yeah.
Where you put them in a jar of water for about 30 minutes. Colder water's better.
Yeah.
This will put them to sleep, and you push on the second to last segment of their body, which pushes the genitalia out.
Okay.
Then you want to take a macro photo of that, because the difference between the male and female genital is very, very subtle. There's just these little studs on the male.
Okay.
Because centipedes are solo animals. They don't live in communities. They will kill any other female if it's a female, and they'll kill any other male if it's a male.
Okay.
So you can't just throw them together, right?
Got it.
So you have to go through the sexing process, and you have to be willing to do that and know how to do that.
Right.
And then put them together, and maybe they won't vibe,
Yeah, that's where I'm at with my mom.
So, and then after that point, is the condition right for them to want to breed? Is the season right? I know even desert haries, which is the largest scorpion in the United States. They're here in Mojave.
Yeah.
Big yellow ones.
Yeah.
They're kind of more aggressive in behavior, but they, as far as I know, the last time I was looking into this, there was one guy that figured out how to breed them, or even to get the condition correct inside a terrarium. For whatever reason, they don't molt well, which is they shed their shell and they get bigger.
Right.
They don't molt well. They oftentimes don't at all, and they die. I've had a few, never got them to molt. And breeding them, that's a whole other thing. Right. I have bred some Asian forest scorpions.
Okay.
Which is kind of easy. It just kind of happens.
Right.
But with the desert haries, people haven't been able to figure out even just their environment. So to circle back to your question, I think that if there's something that's been studied enough to viably breed them and not have any error, then that's fine. But centipedes, there's such a low demand for them. You're not gonna hurt the environment by
I guess the difference,
picking one out.
The difference would be the threat level, the vulnerability Are they extinct? Are they threatened? You know,
Yes.
whatever their
I
levels.
think anything that's even concerned, just leave them
So
alone.
these guys, they're not concerned.
Yeah.
These guys, literally, there's a park in Thailand where they're like pigeons.
Yeah.
You just go there and people feed them bread, which
Yeah.
don't do that. But people do it.
Yeah.
Or cat food, man. Do not feed your monitors cat food, please. Please do not. That's
Don't-
such
I-
an 80s,
And
90s thing.
my PSA is don't feed your cats cat food.
Oh, yeah, or that too. That's true. But,
Or your dog's dog food, because
lot of
more than
the-
likely it's probably not great.
it's all processed, man.
Yeah.
But that was one of the standards in the 90s, 80s for these guys was cat food.
Yeah.
And they'll eat it. But is anyways. I mean, that's a whole nother topic.
I've been taking my parents' dog on hikes every so often, and I'll give her like a whole like beef liver or something.
Yeah, they know.
After that, because wolves eat the liver. The alpha of the wolf pack will go for the liver
Yeah.
of whatever kill every time.
Yeah.
They know that thing is just nutrient.
They know.
I mean, I don't know if they know that, but
Oh no, dude. I think
there's
they
an
know.
instinct there that like that's the good part.
Yeah, I think they know.
So if I ever had a dog, I'd try to do some expensive.
I think my ex-wife, she's got a Doberman. I think they do like a raw diet type thing. But
Yeah.
going back to the question, so I have Rhanus melanus, which is quince monitors, right? And quince monitors are from a small little island, and I believe now they're vulnerable. I think they're vulnerable because of the pet trade.
Mm.
They're a very small monitor. They're the perfect. Everybody knows the green tree monitors, the blue tree monitors, and how beautiful they are. And everybody knows the Asian water monitor, the big dominant monitor. You get as close to a Komodo dragon as you can with this guy.
And the Savannah.
The Savannahs too. They're more like the tank, the ground dweller. You know,
Mhm.
these guys you kind of get a little bit of the ground dwelling with the water, and the tree monitors you don't get so much of the water monitor with them, right? The quince is right in the middle. You get the
Mhm.
tree monitor with the water monitor with the digging. You get everything, and they only get 4 or 5 feet. They don't
Okay.
get very big. But it's gotten to a point where are we at with them? Are we going to keep taking them from this island, or are we going to establish a captive bred population in the States, in Canada? There is a guy in Canada, I can't remember his name, and please forgive me, but there is a guy in Canada who is successful with it. I think there is 1 or 2 people in America that are successful with it, but that's all that I know.
Part of it also is that these people did a ton of trial and error
Yeah.
trying to figure out how
Yeah.
this works,
Yeah.
and they put a lot of time and energy into it, and they
Right.
don't want to share.
Right, they don't want to share.
They're like,
You have to earn it.
yeah,
You got to earn it, and they got to know
they
that you're-
don't. Especially if it's a business,
Yeah,
then they have financial reasons not to tell you how to do it.
correct.
And if it's not a business, they still kind of are attached to that idea.
Correct.
I run into that a lot with taxidermy or that type of thing.
Yeah,
People are very gatekeepy about
Yeah.
methods and how they do stuff because it costs them a lot to learn.
the monitor
But-
monitor community's like that.
Yeah, but my perspective is like, hey, can we like open things up? I don't think it's common enough to where it's going to affect your bottom line. But I could be wrong.
I don't think in the monitor world, I don't know many billionaire, millionaire monitor
Yeah,
breeders.
right.
You're spending all your money on caging and
Yeah.
feeding and
Mhm.
lighting. You're not spending your money. You're not the money that you're making. Probably more than 75% of it's going back into the monitors.
You're just expanding.
You're just expanding.
Yeah.
Filtration. Blah 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 blah. So I don't know what it is. I don't know what the keeping. Monitor world is completely different than the snake world, in my opinion. The snake world, they're pretty open. They'll tell you. They'll give you the idea. They'll help you. The monitor world, the younger generation of it is starting to do it. But the gatekeepers, man, they are the scientific names. The parameters have to be spot on. The caging has to be spot on. They're going to ask you a billion questions before they even kind of tell you a little bit about it. And I think it's good to a point, because you get to a point where as you're somebody who's not into the scientific names,
Mhm.
that doesn't matter to you. What matters to you is the establishing the population. Maybe you're not doing it for money, but maybe you want to just do it one time.
Mhm.
They always say that if you can get your animals to breed, they're happy,
Hmm.
right? You're not forcing them to do it. They're doing it on their own.
Yeah.
They're happy with the environment, the temperatures, the lighting, the cage, the changing, the feeding, everything. They're happy, so they breed, right? Maybe the breeder wants to just do that. I know my animals are happy because of this.
Yeah.
Maybe some of them, there's so many things. So I think the gatekeepers just kind of need to realize that.
Yeah.
That these some people are just in it because when you die, when you pass on, who's gonna keep doing it?
Yep.
Who's gonna keep doing it? And not only keep doing
that
it,
information dies with you. And I tell people that, have secret knowledge sometimes.
Yeah.
Like if you make YouTube and you're the one putting this information out and you do it in a good format,
Yeah.
people will watch that and you'll make money from
Yeah.
you educating people.
Yeah.
But I understand that sometimes it's a matter of like time and energy going in to try to teach someone something, because that is a lot.
Yeah, and it's your baby, right?
Yeah.
This hobby has been my hobby for 50 years, and I've figured it all out. So now you need to figure it out.
Right.
That's how it is. It's like you need to earn it.
Which we can get so much progress if we just...
Yeah, but so that's why whenever I talk about things like this, like I bring up the names.
Yeah.
I bring up Kevin. I bring up Brian. I bring up MJ. I bring up all these people who I've watched, who's influenced me, who I've learned something from.
Mm-hmm.
Because when they quit, stop doing it, sell their things, pass on, whatever, somebody's going to watch this and be like, who's Kevin?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, Kevin's the monitor guy.
Yeah.
And his videos are on YouTube.
Mm-hmm.
So they'll watch it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have all the answers. Kevin has a damn lot of answers, a good amount of answers. So that's how I look at it, man. It's like we're all one giant family. We might not like each other. We might not all agree with how we're doing things, and we might not all know every scientific name in the book, but we all love the animals. Mm-hmm. Whether you love them after they pass, you love them from the egg, you love them, you love the bugs, we all love what God has given to us, man. These not given to us, but these animals are here. They were created, and it's if you're going to keep an animal, you have a responsibility. That's how I look at it. Mm-hmm. Your responsibility is to make sure that animal has the best life it can have in your care. Mm-hmm. That's how I look at it. That's always been
after like coming through it, and I don't have any pets right now because I moved, multiple times. After kind of coming through on the other side of it, when I think about getting an animal or having some sort of pet, I think, how can I set up, if it's going to be in a terrarium, how can I set up this terrarium in the perfect way, all the temperatures right, everything perfect before I even think about putting the animal in there?
That's good.
Because there's been so many times where I'll buy it all at once, or I'll get the animal and then try to set something up, and it's a mistake.
Right.
So if you want to keep something, especially if it's niche and there's not a lot of information on it, try to get the setup right and then go into it. Especially when you think about saltwater stuff, that is huge.
Yeah, water test,
get it exactly right before anything.
So going back to my page and going back to the Quince monitor and stuff like that, they have gotten a lot more popular for the reasons that I stated. It's the best of both worlds. It's a smaller monitor. You get the water aspect, you get the digging aspect, and all that stuff. Anyways, I get people who email me things, and a couple of people have found these animals at PetSmart, which is wild. I have no idea how they got to PetSmart, but they're in PetSmart, and they email me, oh, is a 3x3 okay? Is this? And I ask the questions. What I hate is what you said. You get the animal, and then you build the enclosure around the animal.
Right.
You can't do that. You have to get the cage and kind of let it settle for about 4 or 5 days. Make sure the temperature is good, your humidity gauges are working, your lighting, if you have an automatic lighting system, it clicks on and clicks off at the right time. Mm-hmm. Your UV gauge, is that reading correctly? Because buying the animal from PetSmart to the box to the cage is so stressful on the animal. It is so stressful. And they act like it's not, but it is. They're in a whole nother environment that they don't know. New smells, new temperatures, new a lot of the new stuff that you buy, a lot of the plastic decorations, a lot of people don't know that plastic decoration, when it's hot above 100 degrees, it emits a scent. And they don't know what that is. And if they're staying away from it, it's because they don't know if it's safe or not. Water tubs, a lot of people just use Sterilite water tubs. I use Sterilite water tubs. Clean them out. Buy the stuff that the fish store sells, the clean out tanks. Because there's people have been touching it, and yeah, man, the list goes on, but that drives me nuts. But I mean, people do it. People do go straight from the box to the cage, and it works out just fine. I've done it too. I've done it
Mm-hmm.
before. The hardest thing that I've ever seen is going from the cage to outdoors. Taking the animal from a cage inside to putting it outside. And that's where my tortoises are. And as I told you before, I just lost one of my sulcatas because of temperature drops. It got a respiratory, and I couldn't get it to an exotic vet in time, which is another thing. Make sure if you're going to get involved in these animals, you have a vet that you know of that deals with exotics, because it does help. It's expensive, but it's necessary. But yeah, my tortoises, they thrive outside. They do really well. They don't do well with the temperature change, like the drastic temperature change of the Antelope Valley, you
Mm-hmm.
know. So
Yeah, I had to move my bearded dragon and some of my other animals because my apartment at the time, they were fumigating it for cockroaches and whatever pests,
yeah,
and I had to keep her like at work with me, and then I on my lunch break I would like kind of took her out and I was outside and she couldn't handle it.
yeah,
Like being outside was just so hyper stimulating. She freaked out and acted in a way I'd never seen her act before.
yeah,
But at the same time, I mean, I didn't raise her. A friend of mine didn't want to keep her anymore, so they gave her to me
right,
because they knew that I was keeping a bunch of stuff. So I was like, sure, I'll take her.
right.
Um, and so I maybe had her for 6 months to a year at that point, and but it was like kind of scary to see how she reacted to just being outside.
They get aggressive.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
which is weird for a bearded dragon. But they, they throw out their. I think it's called a dewlap, right? Is it the same? Like
Sounds
I
right.
think it's a dewlap, and they throw it out, and it's got the spikes. That's why they're called a bearded dragon.
Mm-hmm.
It's all spiky. It looks like a beard.
Yeah, and I had the little one at the same
Yeah.
time, but I didn't let them interact because she would just eat him.
Yeah,
Because she was fully grown, and I recorded a video a long time ago. It used to be on my Instagram of the little one. He sees her through the glass, and he's like waving at her,
yeah,
which is kind of like, "Hey, I'm friendly. Like,
yeah,
don't hurt me."
yeah.
And she's bobbing up and down, which is like a territorial,
Right.
like
they get that.
aggressive
Yeah.
type of thing.
So
So
they do those like push-ups.
yeah,
Yeah.
she'll like bob up and down.
Right.
So she's like, "Hey, get out of here! I'm
Yeah.
gonna kill you." And he's like, "It's fine."
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, that's why you don't let them interact because, because I fed her. A lot of people say, "Oh, bearded dragons can only eat something like the size of their neck or something like that,"
Yeah.
and then it has to be insects and it has to be powdered
Calcium
with
powder
calcium.
and all that stuff. Yeah.
But I'd feed her mice. I'd feed her other lizards. I'd fed her a bunch of stuff, and she's like a little dinosaur.
Dude, leopard geckos will eat pinkies. A
Yeah,
lot of people don't know that. And
yeah.
if you are breeding leopard geckos and you can get them to eat, I've lost a couple leopard geckos because I can't get them to stop cycling. They just keep producing eggs, and every time they produce eggs, it just sucks the fat right out of them. They
Yeah.
store the fat in the tail, Their tail gets super skinny, and it's really hard to get them to bounce back. But I learned that if you feed them a pinky, especially the females, before you introduce the males, it gives them fat storage. It boosts their fat storage.
Yeah, and that makes perfect sense to me because
Like mice pinkies, not rat pinkies.
right.
Mice pinkies.
These animals have a varied diet in
Yeah.
nature, and so it doesn't make any sense.
Yeah,
It's
even
like
tortoises.
it's like if you had a human child and you fed them Quaker oatmeal their whole life.
Yeah.
It's like, what are you doing?
Right. I've had we got hawks up where I'm at, and I think we had a hawk drop a pigeon in my backyard one time, and when I went out in my backyard one day, my tortoises were eating it. And I was like, what the heck kind of crap?
I don't know if you follow Nature is Metal.
Yeah.
So one of
Yeah.
the things he says a lot is almost any animal, whether it's a herbivore or not, omnivore, if they have the opportunity to eat another animal, they usually will.
They'll take it, yeah.
Because there's that animal protein you can't get in the
For sure.
normal diet. So you see horses and cows and pigs are more omnivorous, but cows or horses, sometimes they'll like eat a rat or something like
Yeah,
that.
I've seen him eat lettuce, which is
Yeah.
weird. He was curious. I used to let him walk. I don't know if you saw the videos, but I used to let him wander my backyard, and I had some lettuce for my tortoises, and all four of them went to the thing, and I think he got curious and went over there and was licking it. I don't think he intentionally meant to eat it, but he licked it, bit it, but never spit it back out. He ate it and then just
Yeah.
went on his little way.
Yeah.
So they will eat a different diet than what the pet store will tell you or what a care sheet will tell you, and you just gotta, I think too much is bad. But if they eat something they're not supposed to, it's an animal. Like your dog is going to eat things that they don't want to, or they're not supposed to, and you just got to watch them and see how they react to it.
I've seen centipedes eat fruit.
Oh yeah, I bet.
Or
that's pretty crazy.
Like raw chicken.
Really?
Stuff like that. Yeah. Generally they eat anything they can overpower, but occasionally they go for something sweet like banana or something like that. And that's, there's not a lot of information on centipedes on the internet. It's very that's something that I learned was the internet is vast and shallow.
Yeah.
Especially when you're talking about something really niche like that. And so with centipedes and how they behave and what they eat, it's like probably try to find someone who knows that has had them and has had success with them rather than using Wikipedia or any sort of website, because you're not going to get good information. Like, and I mean, this is like kind of neither here nor there, I guess, but like no one on the internet would ever tell you to handle a centipede under any circumstances.
Right.
Because they'll just bite you. They're just aggressive. They're predators, I handled all the centipedes that I've had. I got bit once, but
was it bad?
It wasn't too bad. It was a little African species called a Ethnostigmus trigopotus. And it was worse than like an ant bite or like a bee.
All the tarantulas I've had, I've handled it. Never been bit. The ones that I don't know if this is normal. I don't know if they all do it, but they would rub their fangs on my nail.
Interesting.
And I don't know if they were just feeling it to see what it is. But we used to have a big bird eater.
Oh, really?
Yeah, big bird eater. We had a bird eater.
Those
Mexican curly hairs, I think they are.
Fascinating.
And the green bottle blues, the Venezuelan green. That's my favorite. I like those. But they would rub their fangs on my finger, and I'm like, "Are you trying to bite me?"
I've been critical of tarantula keeping because I've had a few. I've captured a few in the wild here. I believe they're called California
rose hairs.
No, it's not a rose hair. They're like these blackish gray ones that you can see around here. I've had a few of those. One of them had an internal parasite, so its abdomen exploded, which was like interesting to learn.
Yeah.
And I have had a rose hair that I got from like Petco or something. But to me, it was like, yeah, it's like a spider, but it's kind of like having a pet rock.
Yeah.
They just kind of stand there.
Yeah.
And then you feed them.
Yeah.
And that's like the most exciting part of the day.
There's no point to having them at all. They don't love you. They don't care. They don't hate you.
And in my own, I guess in my own, not defense, but like you can also be critical of me for having centipedes, because centipedes, a lot of times they'll dig underground and they just hang out underground. So people would come over and be like, "Oh, what's in here?" And I'd be like, "It's a centipede," but you'll never see it.
Right.
So like sometimes he'll come out at night.
Yeah. Yeah.
So sorry.
Like millipedes too, man. Like millipedes, like they're pretty much pointless to keep as a pet, but they're really cool.
The word pet.
It's cool.
It's funny.
It's kind of like, to me, it was like an ant farm. My son was into it. You're not holding them. You're not hugging them. You're not walking them. We take it outside every now and then so it would get like sunlight.
Those really, have you seen those huge European ones? You can't get them here. At least I haven't.
Like
They're like a millipede that's like this wide around.
Like jet black?
They're like a foot. Yeah.
Yeah.
They're like a foot long.
Are they African?
I believe they're African.
Okay.
I don't think you can get them in the United States, but a lot of Europeans get like the best insects. Right. They get a ton of different stuff, but you can't get them here.
Right.
But yeah, millipedes are cool. There's not really an issue with holding them. They're not going to bite you.
No.
As I described, millipedes are poisonous and centipedes are venomous. So
that's good.
Injecting versus excretion. So don't eat a millipede, and probably maybe wash your hands after, because maybe they'll excrete a little bit of poison. But for the most part,
we never got sick. My kid would hold them. I mean, I'm sure we washed our hands, but it wasn't like, oh, now go wash your hands.
Right. Yeah.
But we never got sick. That they're so fast. I don't know. I guess compare it to like an ant farm. You're not going to be helping the ants dig tunnels.
Right.
But they're so cool to watch. And dude, have you ever seen ant keepers? Like
I've tried to keep ants a few times actually. When I was working yesterday, a queen formica species crawled up to me, and I know quite a bit about ants, so I can identify them on site.
Right.
And I thought about keeping her, but I was like, I don't have anywhere to keep her right now. It's a lot.
Dude, when did you know that you had that gift to like memorize the scientific names? And because it's a gift. It's a gift. There's something in your brain.
Only if I'm really interested will I remember the name.
But you have that gift. Like
Yeah.
there's some of us that do not.
You know what I think it is? I've people will like come over and they'll be like, "Oh, what's its name?" I'm like, "I don't know, but the species is this." Because I kind of kept them because I was studying them.
Did you do a lot of labeling, like on
No.
the tanks and stuff?
No,
Because I know
I
some
think I
people...
did one time, but that's it.
Okay,
And it might have been just because maybe there was like a close relation in the way they looked.
right.
But no, I didn't do that. And I would say like the cockroaches, I don't really know their species name. It kind of depends on what it is, but the people would come over and be like, "Oh, what's the bullfrog's name?"
Yeah,
And I'd be like,
bullfrog.
it did have a. When I first got her, I named her Aglubemu, which is like a Native American like folklore about a giant frog who swallowed the river.
Oh wow!
But she ended up being female, and I was like, I don't know if I want to keep the same name because it was sold to me as male.
Okay.
I emailed them and I was like, hey, this isn't a male, and they're like, sorry, we can't identify it. I'm like, but you sold it to me as
that happens with monitors. It happens with monitors.
I was so mad, but she people would come over and be like, oh yeah, you should name him so and so. I'm like, okay, sure.
Yeah.
But as soon as they leave, like, I'm not gonna call them.
Nah, they don't care.
Like,
man.
I'm just, I forget what they even would call it.
They don't care, dude. They don't care. It's not like a dog.
No,
they just
especially because I had so many like invertebrates.
Yeah.
I had like, scorpions and centipedes and stuff. I'm not gonna name them. Like, well, I did name one, the one that bit me.
Yeah.
I named Brutus.
Okay.
Because he betrayed me.
Yeah. My daughter, she got into she's been into snails, man, and we ended up getting like a little fish tank with the fighting fish, the betas. And we got a snail for her. Well, the snail laid an egg sac and we threw it away, and then it laid another one. And I was like, well, let's just see what happens. Dude, they have so many babies and they're so tiny. You can't see them. And they're little apple snails. And they, dude, it's like an alien. Little snails in general, they're like aliens.
Yeah.
They do what they want. I guess any animal does what they want, but snails, like, they just move how they want, and somehow they're like perfectly in flow with what's going on, and they know what's happening. You can change everything, and there's still no stress, no nothing. They just take over everything. And I was reading about the snails and like the name and everything, and I was like, how do people remember this shit? Like, I can't remember it. I can't remember none of it. And there's some people who can just rattle it off, bam, 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 bam.
Yeah,
bam.
you have to care. Well, I had a Scolopendra species, unidentified centipede, which is known as the Malaysian jewel.
Okay.
And it's jet black, but then its legs go in a rainbow uniform.
Oh.
So the antennae are yellow, and then the first few legs are red, and then they go orange, blue, green, something like that. So it's really colorful, but the body's black. Unnamed.
Right.
It's just Scolopendra family. So the species is unnamed. I'm a random guy that lives in Santa Clarita or in Southern California. I don't live there anymore. And I have a centipede that scientists know about but haven't named. That's how niche it is.
Yeah.
Like, no one cared enough, and this is one of the most beautiful centipedes too.
Yeah, that sounds rad.
No one cared enough to name this species yet.
And usually the colorful ones are the ones that get named, because the ones that are brown and black, they're just like, whatever.
Right. Yeah. And so it's so interesting to me that it's like,
submit a name, dude.
Who's doing the work?
Yeah, you are, man. Submit the name.
Yeah, exactly. It's people like me and like Michael Emistry. He's a centipede breeder in New Mexico. He kind of like retired from it, but there's so much work that people like us have done.
Yeah.
And he's done a ton of this work. And I was like, hey, you should write a book so that if you die, it doesn't get lost to the void.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of work that's being done there, but in the scientific community and the people that have the degrees or the papers and the ability to like name a species or however that works, I don't know.
Yeah.
Those people are not interested.
Yeah.
clearly.
Have you ever seen the show Locked Up Abroad?
No.
Where it's like people travel and they end up somehow committing a crime and they end up getting locked up and they have to do time in that country. You never seen
No.
that? I can't remember what station it was on. It might not even be on anymore. But so one of the biggest guys in the reptile industry is Tom Crutchfield, and Tom Crutchfield is probably responsible for, I don't know the exact number. Let's just say half of the species, exotic species that are in America, because he flew to all these countries in the 80s and would put these animals in his pockets, in his suitcases, and he would fly them back here and keep them and figure out how to breed them and sell them and stuff like that. And he's getting up there in age. He's I'm not sure the exact age, but he's getting up there. But his handling techniques, the breeding techniques, the housekeeping, the substrates and keeping of an animal, husbandry is what the word I'm thinking of. I believe he has wrote a book, but it's like, Tom, man, write more books because we need to preserve as much of this as possible. And I really, going back to Brian Barczyk when he passed away, that guy is a walking encyclopedia, man, of breeding knowledge.
Yeah.
And a reptile industry knowledge, how he's the one that created pet tubing. Have you heard of is it AnimalCon? Have you heard of that? I think it's in Florida. I think it's called
I don't think
AnimalCon.
so.
I think it's AnimalCon. He created AnimalCon. So now, all the pet tubers, they're all getting together once a year and going to Florida and doing this AnimalCon. And I hope that's the right name for it. If not, I'm so sorry. But this industry was created because of Brian. Mm-hmm. And it he passed away way too soon, unfortunately, from cancer. Yeah, because
he was what, 40s?
I want to say like maybe 50.
Maybe
50. Yeah. I mean, luckily his wife Lori and his son Noah, they created the Reptarium was already created, and I believe it's in Michigan. I don't know the exact state it's in. I think it's Michigan. And across the street, they were able to buy the building right before he got diagnosed, or right when he got diagnosed. So now there's the Reptarium and there's the Legacy aquarium, and there's the mammal exhibits in there, and all these, and the regular people can just go to it. It's like a zoo. And his son Noah decided, finally stepped up and is doing the whole YouTube thing and all that. And it's like, dude, that we need to preserve that as much as possible, because once that knowledge is gone, you have to start all over again. Mm-hmm. And it's time consuming.
Yeah. It's like if you read a book, that information that's in that book may or may not be on the internet.
How many people read books nowadays?
Exactly.
That's the crazy part is
most people will go to Google and be like, see, I was right about whatever. Yeah. It's like, no.
Here's my little 2-paragraph article and that's right. Or here's my little 10-second
snippet. I took a photo of the queen ant that I found yesterday.
Yeah.
And you know how like iPhone works now, where you can press the little ID?
Yeah.
So I was curious what it would say, and it was like, oh, this is a carpenter ant. Mm-hmm. I'm like, so if I didn't know better, I'd be like, oh yeah, there's a carpenter ant.
Right.
But I know for a fact it's not a carpenter ant. But how many people could look at it and know that?
Yeah.
So that's the thing. There's like a lot of people who just like look at Google as like a way of navigating the world, and it's not a good idea.
It goes back to like when you're hiking on a trail, right? And you see a rat snake or a gopher snake, and automatically it's a rattlesnake, kill it.
Right.
No, man.
Even if it is a rattlesnake, the rattlesnakes are the nicest venomous snakes that exist, because they warn you.
Yeah. They warn you. Yeah. They give you a heads up. Hey, get out of my way.
I was running on a hiking trail out here, and I saw a rattlesnake right as I was coming around this corner, and I jumped right over her head.
Oh, you were telling me about that.
Did I? Okay.
Yeah.
And so I jumped right over her head, and I was like, oh my gosh, because like I saw it as I was running. She didn't even rattle or anything.
Right.
She knew, or had a suspicion, I'm guessing, that I was just going to run the trail, because there's probably deer and other people that go that trail, and they can hear you.
Yeah.
And so she didn't even rattle or anything. She was just kind of going along her way. And I turned around and I looked at her, and she's just sitting there.
Yeah.
I was like, okay. So like I got closer, and then she rattled. I was like, okay.
Yeah, they don't mess with you, man.
Yeah.
They don't mess with you unless you mess with them.
Yeah.
Oh, I don't know. It's again, going back to, why do people have a fear of this stuff? And we'll never really know. But to me, it's education. To me, it's lack of education, I guess. You learn your basics in biology in high school, and if you don't go on to college to be a biologist, you're not going to learn anymore. You learn this. That's it.
Mm-hmm. And like basic biology in high school, at least for me, that also includes microbiology,
Yeah.
which is like zero information about
Right.
the real world, really.
Right.
It's kind of like the difference between like book smarts and street smarts.
Right.
Like book smart would be like microbiology,
Yeah.
where in the real world it doesn't apply almost at all.
Right.
Maybe I'm pissing someone off by saying that, but
It's true. It's true, man. It's definitely true, and unfortunately, people get offended, but
yeah,
it's true. It's 100% true.
yeah. And I hate microbiology. I went to school for biology for like a little while, but then I was like, I can't afford to do this and work a job. And I was doing some microbiology because you have to do like microbiology introductory
Right.
in order to go into like the next classes.
Right.
And I'm like, man, I hate this.
Well, it's like me.
It's like-
I went to school. After I got out of the Navy, I went to college for a while, and I wanted to study herpetology.
Mm.
And then I got into the biology classes, and I at one point I was like, I don't care what is in this throw up, or
Right.
what is in this poop, or anything. I just care about like observing them.
Yeah.
And then that's when I switched. Then I was like, college ain't for me. So
Yeah.
but yeah, it's too much. But God bless the people who can do it, because we need you.
it's
We need-
it's important.
We need you.
Yeah.
We need you. Marine biologists, all of that. Even when you're a kid, I'm going to be a marine biologist because of SeaWorld.
Even that.
Because
man.
it's, yeah.
Well, one of the teachers, because I think I was taking a split class of two different biologies. One of my teachers wanted to be a marine biologist,
Yeah.
but she's teaching biology.
Right.
And that's what happens a lot of the time. You get a degree in something, but if you can't get in the field and get your feet on the ground and
Yep.
get experience there, you're not going to get to where you want to be.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't know if you're familiar with Forrest Galante or Gallant.
Gallant sounds familiar.
He does
Forrest Gallant.
Extinctor Alive. He did for a little
Okay.
while. It was a show where he would try to find.
Yeah.
I found him from podcasting, but he was saying in his book where he started out by counting ants on an island after he got his biology degree, and that's what he did for years. And he was like, "Man, this is not what I thought it was going to be."
Yeah.
And so eventually he started getting some opportunities to do other stuff. And he's like, I had to like make those steps to like get experience other places in order to get onto Extinct and Alive,
Right.
and then be able to do that kind of work.
Right.
But I started by counting ants,
If I had the time to do my whole animal journey all over again, I probably would have. There was a minute there where I was like, I kind of want to open my shop. I want to open a pet shop.
Mm.
But then the podcasting and everything started happening,
Mm-hmm.
and I was like, okay, this is interesting, because where are we gonna go with this?
Mm-hmm.
And then I just haven't committed to it because my work schedule and my commute home and stuff like that. But I think about it all the time. Like, I could do this. I could totally do this. And this is like being in the field and learning from other people and learning about other animals because of their experiences. And you know what I mean? Does that make sense? Like, I'm learning from you because you've spent 20 years with this species
Sure.
or these species.
Sure.
So I don't know anything about fish, but you know a lot about fish. You know a lot about bugs. I don't know nothing about bugs. It's kind of like fast forwarding it for me. Like, I'm going to learn something. I might not learn a whole bunch of stuff about it, but I'm going to learn something. And that's what I wanted my herpetology degree to be.
Right.
I didn't want to dissect dead animals. I didn't want to know gut parts. I just wanted to watch them. I wanted to learn about the behaviors and where they come from and how they interact and stuff like that. So
yeah, like centipedes. There's one book on anatomy,
yeah,
and I think there's maybe, I don't know because it's in Russian.
yeah.
But there's
That's crazy.
there's a book. There's another book about it might have some behavioral stuff,
Yeah,
but it's in Russian,
right.
and there isn't a translation.
Yeah.
And there's two books. Okay, there's an anatomy one, and there's one I don't even know if, like I said, I don't even know how much behavior stuff's in
Right.
there, but it's in Russian. That's the kind of more in-depth information that you can find on them.
Dude, that's crazy.
And the anatomy book is like $500 on Amazon right now. It's been on my like watch list for like
Yeah.
5-10 years or something. I don't know. It's just been on there.
There's
like,
gonna be a sale.
I'm like, one
There's gonna be
day
a
I'll
sale.
get it, I probably won't. But
Yeah, dude. There's so many books out there. Even when you go to the reptile shows, Have you been to one of the Pomona
I've
shows?
never actually been to a
Oh,
reptile show.
dude, go to one of the Pomona shows one time.
Mm.
I think the next one is in July. I think
Mm.
it's in July. If not, it's in January for sure.
Mm.
But there's vendors there that just have books,
Mm.
and that it's always cool to look at them and stuff like that. So I don't recommend any of them because I haven't really read too many of them. My knowledge is pretty much hands on, man. It's been hands on and just asking questions, and yeah, that's how I ended up with that guy.
Yeah.
I can't even tell you why I wanted him. Like, I don't know why. I just knew something drew me to it. And a lot of people think it's like dinosaurs. Like when you're a kid, you're into dinosaurs and stuff like that.
Sure.
I was into dinosaurs, but I wasn't into
The thing is that kids are into dinosaurs because dinosaurs are insane.
Right.
Like, they're just crazy.
Which one of them is not cool?
Yeah.
But it's the closest thing that you can own to a dinosaur.
Yeah.
You know? But that's not why. It's just something about it. Like I was telling you before we started, you know, it's cool to see the rib structure because I've seen him almost fit under a door, you know, a door frame like that big.
Mm.
And it's like, how does something that big get that flat?
Mm-hmm.
And now I can see it. I can physically see how it happens and how thin they are.
And you also can't see, because the method that I use to clean this is called maceration.
Mm-hmm.
So all the cartilage that was in there was eroded. So the front of the rib cage has like a cartilage barrier, as well as there's a lot of cartilage like around the shoulder blade.
Right.
All that stuff's gone. Sometimes you can preserve it if you clean it, like maybe with beetles, you'd have a better chance of preserving cartilage. But even then, you got to watch it because beetles, they can overeat
Right.
like parts that you don't want them to go for. But yeah, there's you're seeing just bone structure without the cartilage there.
Yeah, which is wild.
Yeah.
I feel so bad about the nails, man, because I used expanded metal for the cage.
Oh yeah.
And
I was, you know, I don't think you're supposed to macerate the nails either.
yeah.
So I'm working on a pit bull articulation right now.
Oh wow.
For a client, and I took the nails out as soon as they loosened out.
Mm-hmm.
I just put them in a bag because I didn't want them to soak more and be in the whatever chemicals and whatnot. And I think that they'll probably turn out better.
Yeah.
Because they seem normal.
But they're all jacked up, man.
Yeah.
And that's nothing that you did. It's just from him climbing on that expanded metal and, you know, they're little diamond shapes.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm talking about, expanded metal?
Yeah.
It's like a diamond shape. So his nail will get caught in that. And
Mm-hmm.
that's part of keeping the animal.
Mm-hmm.
And you got to make sure you get it all right before you throw him in there because I literally thought it was fine.
Mm-hmm.
I went to work, came back, and the walls in the cage were white, but it looked like something out of like the movie Carrie or was it Carrie Psycho or whatever? And it's just blood everywhere. And I was like, what happened? You know, what happened? And then I got him. He's fine. He's cruising around, walking around. Everything looks fine. No limping, no weird toes anywhere. And then I finally realized that all the nails broke off at like right by the bedding of it. So
Mm-hmm.
they have a quick in there, I believe, like a dog, right?
What do you mean?
Or like a vein, like you know, how, like when you cut a dog nail too short, it bleeds like crazy.
I would assume they probably have like a nerve or something in there. I don't know from my like
Right,
portion
what
of
the
looking at
anatomy
it.
is.
Yeah.
But yeah, so it had to be something because the blood was just coming from the nails, and like I finally figured out how to spray like this Flex Seal stuff so to make it so his nails wouldn't get stuck in there. And then when I gave the cage to the guy who has it now with the croc monitors, I told him, I said, dude, because croc monitors climb a lot more than they do.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, I didn't spray the top, so you might need to figure out the top because if they're walking upside down, their nails are like way more hooked than theirs.
Mm-hmm.
And so far so good. He has no problems with his monitors in the cage. But yeah, dude, it's just, and then, you know what? When you sent me the picture of the skull,
Mm-hmm.
I was like, dude, that looks so much like a dragon.
Yeah.
Like, and I'm like, did people say there were dragons because they found skulls like that, so they just assumed there were dragons? Like, that's where my brain went with this. Probably not true. It's probably not really happening.
I don't know. There's a lot of things happening. Like if you've seen like Boneyard, Alaska.
Oh yeah.
So there's a lot of things happening these days that are like disproving a lot of the status quo around scientific findings, or you know, they've pulled species out of there that are not supposed to be there.
Right.
And they have pulled out more mammoth and Pleistocene era animals out of that area
Right.
than anywhere in the world,
That's
which
crazy.
previously I think was La Brea.
Yeah.
Because La Brea's pulled a lot of like whole like saber-tooth and
Right.
like some of the best preserved bones that we have of that era. But Alaska, there's something weird going on there.
Yeah, it's weird.
They're all in like 2.5 acres.
Yeah.
All of it's all piled up.
And it's multiple species.
And there's a bunch of species and a bunch of species that people said were never in that area and they're not supposed to be there.
Right.
And yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty wild.
It's pretty crazy.
Yeah.
So that thing really fascinates me because whenever I see species, like if I see bones or fossils, particularly if it's like preserved bone, because that's actual biological material, it's so fascinating to me seeing these things that aren't around anymore.
Right.
Or at least we are fairly certain that they're not around anymore.
Right.
Like, I don't know if you've seen like any scalings or diagrams or even real bones from like cave bears.
Oh, yeah. Actually, I follow that guy on Instagram.
Boneyard.
Yeah.
Yeah, me
And
too. Yeah.
I started like looking up this because I never heard of some of those things. So I was
Yeah.
like, oh, what is this? What is that? And then I was like, oh crap, this was really Roman, North America at one point.
Yeah.
It's pretty wild to think.
Yeah.
It's pretty wild to think, really.
I think a lot of these things aren't around anymore, partly because people killed them all,
Sure.
because they killed a bunch of people.
Sure.
Because a lot of the things that aren't around anymore are things that are just horrifying. Like,
Well, it's like the grizzly bear, right? Do you know about why we
In
don't
California.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Lebec, California, or whatever.
Yeah.
And it's named after the person who was killed,
Peter Lebec.
Peter Lebec. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's why we.
I
don't
live
have-
like right over there.
Oh, okay.
Right now.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's wild.
Yeah, and so I went to school growing up in that Tajon area,
Okay.
and so when we were in like middle school or maybe even before that, they took us a field trip to Tajon, which is
Yeah.
an old Civil War fort there, and you can see his grave there under a tree.
That's crazy.
He supposedly was killed by a grizzly bear,
And then that.
and I think
Triggered
it's the 1920s was the last time there was a grizzly bear in California.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because a lot of people think that there are grizzly bears here because it's on the flag of the state.
Nope.
And it's like,
Brown
I
bears.
understand like some people's perspectives of like, oh, we should bring back wolves and we should bring back these animals that were
Yeah.
here before. But it's like, trust me, you don't want that to happen. There's too many people here.
Right.
And people who have like farm animals and whatnot. You saw in Colorado recently, they
Yep.
released wolves into Colorado. I think this is like a huge mistake
Yeah.
because most of the people that live in the community they released them in voted against doing it.
Yeah.
And the reason for that is that wolves are apex predators and they have killed people
Yeah.
throughout history.
Oh yeah.
They kill people, they kill your livestock. And
World War One, right? World War One. They had to like call a timeout so they could kill the wolves.
Yeah, there was like a truce.
Yeah.
I think there was a truce.
Yeah. Imagine that. You're like
Between
time out.
was it France and Germany?
Something like that. Yeah.
I can't recall exactly, but they're like, there's too many wolves eating us.
Yeah. We need to kill the
Let's
wolves.
kill
first,
them.
and then we'll kill each other.
And then we'll kill each other. Yeah, and it's such a crazy story.
It's wild.
And like, but people these days they don't understand wildlife.
Right.
Like, nature is brutal, and it is
Oh.
not. It doesn't care. And
Nope.
those wolves need to eat, and they will eat your kids. And that's why they're not in California. And the same reason for the grizzly bear.
Yeah.
That's why they're not here, because they ate people
Yep.
a lot.
A lot. A
So,
lot. Way more than you think.
when I hike around here, the main thing you really have to worry about is mountain lions.
Mountain lions.
And even then, it's very uncommon.
Right.
And black bears can definitely occasionally be aggressive, but it's not a grizzly bear. It's a totally different animal.
Well, and even being like my size, like I don't know if you can tell on the camera, but I'm 6'5" and I'm 300 pounds. Like a mountain lion is gonna take me down.
Mountain lion, they're so strong.
Yeah, they're gonna
Well,
take me
you
down,
know,
no problem.
Mountain lions they probably peak at about 150 pounds,
Hmm.
but they're just the strength that they have in their body.
You can't match it. The agility, everything.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's very crazy.
Yeah.
And so, what's interesting that I learned fairly recently was jaguars that are in like Central America.
Mhm.
There's one that kind of comes into California, New Mexico. His name's El Jefe.
Yeah, El Jefe. Yeah.
Yeah. Jaguars are around 200 pounds or more.
That's wild.
So they're much bigger than mountain
big
lions. So I'm grateful they're not
Yeah.
in this area.
No, and then everybody's, oh, they're so cute, they're so fluffy. Yeah, that fluffy thing will eat you from the butthole first, man.
Well, like the Aztecs had the jaguar warrior
Yeah, yeah.
as like a representation of like their militaristic power.
Right.
These jaguar warriors were like elite
Right.
fighters among the Aztecs. There's a reason for that.
There's a reason for it. Yeah.
Yeah.
There's every animal that's been, the lions and stuff. Some of the armor from medieval times, it was a lion head. Like they made it shaped like a lion head.
Yeah.
Well, because, dude, like it's the ape, it's the top.
Yeah.
We think that we're the top.
Yeah.
We're only the top because we can outthink you. That's the only reason why. We can't outrun you. We can't outfight you. We can't, and guns.
Yeah.
But we can't, man.
Yeah.
Put a bunch of, never mind. That's a whole nother topic. But
right.
You're right. Bringing the wolves into these communities, it's not a good idea. I don't think. I understand the conservation part of it, but
I'm all for conserving the predators that are already in certain areas.
Yeah.
But I don't know if you're familiar with Steven Ranella.
Yeah.
So he was recently saying for California, if you look at the stats about mountain lions that have been hunted by hunters who pay to get a tag and shoot a mountain lion,
right,
have been kind of replaced because they don't really let you do that anymore, and now they're paying state officials to go hunt and shoot the same amount of mountain lions, except for that's coming out of your tax dollars.
Oh, dang.
Because they're like, for PR's sake, they're
Right.
like, oh, it looks bad if we hunt mountain lions and trophy hunting and that whole
Right.
the connection of there, it's bad and
Right.
we don't like that. But now we're going to pay government workers to go do the exact same thing that a person who lives here would pay them.
Yeah.
So instead of the state making money from the people paying for tags, now we're paying the state to go hire a government worker to shoot the mountain lion because there's too many of them.
Right.
And it's the same number.
When at one point, wasn't there not enough? Like, weren't we worried about it for a while?
Maybe a long time
like
ago.
Before the earthquake, before 94 earthquake, I think it was like...
I'm not sure. But now, like, the mountain lions have healthy growing numbers, even while being hunted with tags and or by government workers.
Wow,
yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah,
they're
doing fine. They're really good at hunting. So
yeah, I know they built, like, I think it's on the 118. They built the wildlife overpass. Is it the 118 or 101?
I'm not sure.
There's a wildlife overpass now, so the mountain lions can walk right.
Okay.
And forth. And I'm like, what? You're gonna let these?
Did
things...
you see? I might mess this up.
You messed it up. It's okay.
It's there's a mountain lion that's collared that they took a photo of it going P20
P20 or P26 or something like that.
That was P29.
P whatever.
I don't know. That's what I'm saying. It's a number, so I might mess it up. But that one recently died, so they have like an exhibit for it in the Natural History Museum of Los Angeles now. And P22. That's what I think it is.
P22.
Yeah, but that was like this massive mountain lion that they had collared.
Are they all
in
P
Hollywood.
something?
I'm not sure.
That'd be weird.
So, but that thing,
they're massive.
It's fed well. That was a pretty big one.
Yeah,
and so in that area, in the Hollywood area,
he was famous because he was always like in Griffith Park and stuff.
Yeah, and so those particular mountain lions that are in that area, a lot of times they're eating people's dogs and whatever because that's the area that they're in.
I see. I'm a mailman, right? I'm a letter carrier, so I'm up here by like Bell Canyon, West Hills area, and I always see like missing cat posters, right? And you don't see missing cat posters very often. It's always like missing dogs. The cats are missing because of the hawks and the coyotes.
Yeah.
And the coyotes come down the little river or washway. I see it, a couple times a month, and it's like. I've had customers tell me that they have 6-foot fences and the coyotes jump right over it like nothing.
Yeah, they'll jump over like 10 feet fence.
Dude,
they'll jump over like a 10-foot fence, grab your
like on their ring
your
camera.
French bulldog or whatever, and then jump over a 10-foot fence with it in their mouth.
And that's it. Yep.
Yeah.
I've seen hawks take cats and just grab it and straight up, man. Yeah. And they drop it till it splatters, and then they eat it liver first.
Right.
Like,
yeah.
It's wild, man. It's really wild,
and they want wolves and grizzly bears.
Yeah, you want a bear, man? Like, I'm good, man. I'm good. But I understand. Like I said, I understand the conservation part of it. I totally do. And that's part of my work with like the quince monitors. Like I'm hoping that I can establish a breeding population of them to take some of the stress off of the wild population.
I think this is why we have wildlife biologists. We want them to go in, monitor the
Right.
populations. What can we do to make these populations all healthier,
Right.
and then move from there.
Right.
But when you have like this Colorado law that passed from the governor there, um, it's emotional.
Yeah.
It's not based in science. It's just that, oh, we love wolves, and wolves were here before, and they're a majestic animal, and we want them here.
Right.
It's just not a good way to make decisions
No.
when you talk about this type of thing. And
especially our public safety, man.
yeah, and this is not an area, like there's more people in these areas than ever, and we're gonna learn some hard lessons again that we don't need to learn, but they're here.
Yeah, that's true. That's very true. I have you ever been to Wyoming?
No. A friend of mine lived there, but no.
My friend, she got married. This is a little bit off topic, but my friend, she got married over there, and we went out there for her wedding and stuff like that. And we were coming out of the hotel, and I forgot what the town was called. We were coming out of the hotel, and there was just I think it was like 3 or 4 meese.
I think they're called moose.
Herd,
plural.
a herd of them. Yeah, and dude, I've never seen one in real life. Man, this is a big animal, bro.
I haven't seen them in real life either, but I know they're massive.
Dude, it's like I said, I'm 6'5". Like I could barely see over the back of one.
Yeah.
And we kind of like we're from California, man. Like we walk back inside, like and the lady's like,
That's a good
"Oh no,
idea.
they're just out. They're crossing the parking lot. They're going to the field over there." And I'm like, "You see that all the time?" She's like, "Oh yeah, all the time."
Moose are aggressive too.
Yeah,
This is what, like, going back to the dog stat that I mentioned earlier.
Yeah.
Moose kill more people than a lot of
Yeah,
other
so
animals.
the lady was telling us, she's like, "Yeah, just don't get too close, especially if they have a baby."
Yeah.
And I was like, I'm in their world. I'm not like they're not in my world. I'm in their world right now. Like this thing wants to kick me or charge me or whatever.
I saw a guy sledding huskies on Instagram,
right,
and a moose ran into him and stomped a bunch of their dogs because the dogs were like irritating it. They were all barking.
dude.
But the moose is like, oh, well, I'm a giant moose. I'm just going to stomp your dogs because they're used to stomping
And it's
things.
effortless.
Yeah.
It's effortless. It's just,
Yeah. You gotta, I think if you're in moose country, you gotta have like a 45 on you or
easy,
something.
Easy.
And speaking of which, my friend who lived in Wyoming, he knew a guy for the time that he was there, a guy who was a hunting guide, and he was killed by a grizzly bear, and he had, wife and like 2 or 3 kids.
Her wedding was up in a part where like the people, if you get jacked up on your farm, you're medevaced out. Like there's no way to get to a hospital. They have to airlift you out, and we were out at night with the fire and everything, and then we heard wolves like howling, and I was like, we need to go inside. We don't need to be out here right now. But they're like, no, it's fine. It happens all the time, and I'm like, that's not fine. That's not fine. And then we went to Yellowstone, man, and we saw was it bison or is it buffaloes? Bison?
Yeah, both terms are
Bro,
correct.
that's a big old animal, man.
Yeah.
That's bigger than a moose.
Yeah.
And you're like, and people try to touch them.
Yeah.
And
There's a page on Instagram called Torons of Yellowstone.
Oh, I gotta
It's
check
like
that out.
tourist morons, and it's just a bunch of people trying to touch bison or moose and
Selfie
getting
with them,
and just getting launched.
yeah. Oh man, kind of want to see that though.
Yeah. It's just it's not good.
Yeah, respect the wildlife, people. Respect wildlife because they will jack you up fast.
Yeah.
We're not these big bad things that we think we are every day. We have this.
Again, you're inside the concrete jungle, the city with lights and civilization. When you're out in nature and you're in the middle of nowhere, it's not the same game.
I have this like saying that I always say is like, we're in their world. They're not in our world. We've developed our world into their world.
Sure.
But we're in their world.
Yeah.
And that needs to be respected at all times. Doesn't matter from the ants. We all kill spiders and stuff like that. We've all done it. Cockroaches. We try not to, I guess, but some of us are probably a little more aggressive with it than others. But it's all here for a reason, man. It's all here for a reason. It all works well and it all jives together, and it's created this planet. Like without that, we're nothing. If the ants are gone, we're not dead like right away, but
The honeybees.
yeah. It's all a part of life, and it all makes something else work. And I think people forget that, man, because you're in the hustle and bustle 9 to 5 every day, 4 hour traffic every day with your Monster Energy drink and
Yeah, it's so different from
audiobook.
like being a guy who works in an office and
Yeah.
then, oh, we're in the middle of
Yeah, dude.
Yellowstone.
Yeah. Go to
Totally.
Yellowstone, dude. If you get a chance, go because it does something to you on the inside. Like it's like, oh crap, like this is what we used to be. Like this is how we used to live. We used to be wandering this, like we used to navigate this without a cell phone, without a Thomas guide, without a computer. And all we had was a shotgun, maybe, or not even a shotgun. Like back in those days, those pioneer days. Like, you ever actually think about how those people walked over here, like with
Hmm.
buggies and horses? Like that's wild. Imagine all the crap that they saw, and everything wants to kill you. Everything wants to kill you, or can kill you, or an infection can happen, or something. And it's like, dude, we're soft now. We think we're hard, and we can fight everybody and fight each other. Man, we're soft. We're worse now. I think.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
I
we're
mean,
worse now.
you know,
We can't even talk to our neighbors anymore, man. Like, you remember growing up, like,
especially in California, everyone's like so compact together in LA
dude,
that people don't want to interact with other
I
people.
delivered to some apartment complexes. The apartment, your next, whatever you call it, the unit next to it, they don't even know each other.
Hmm.
They don't want to know each other.
I lived in an apartment for like 8 years
Yeah.
out here, and I didn't know any of my
Now,
neighbors
some of us are
on
like,
purpose.
yeah, like some of us are like that now. But like
Yeah.
when we were kids, man, like the whole block knew each other.
Yeah.
The parents knew the kids.
Yeah.
Um, and it's not like that anymore. Like I live on a cul-de-sac. I know 2 neighbors,
Mhm.
maybe 3.
Yeah.
And it's just back then in the pioneer, like you had to know everybody. Everybody relied on everybody
Mhm.
in the town, right?
Mhm.
That's the only way you were going to survive. Somebody had something that you needed, or you needed a trade to get you going, for the most part.
I think I think this is kind of like an ongoing theory I've been building on. I think in a sense humanity has gone too far.
Yeah,
And I think what I mean by that is like looking at, I'll start with like regenerative agriculture for like cattle.
yeah,
Like this is the way we should be doing it, right? But we've built up these like factory farms and these industries that
yeah.
in my kind of perspective it's like we've advanced through the suffering of animals and
Right.
nature and other people, and it's it's like we've expanded through our own sin.
Yeah.
And it's like,
Oh,
well,
that's a
if we
whole nother topic.
yeah, and it's like if we did everything the right way, I don't think things would have gotten to this point. And I think people were meant to be in the sun and meant to eat whole, real foods
Yeah,
and not like these processed
for
foods
sure.
that we have. We were meant to be outside in nature and to see, and like, they say like depression is like affected, like environmental depression is affected by like just going outside and seeing nature.
Right.
Like it literally like spikes your like dopamine or something like that.
Some response, yeah.
Yeah. And so, it, I think that we've gone to the point like we've pursued comfort and
Yeah.
convenience to
Convenience.
the extent that it's we can't reverse it. And
Yeah.
we're in a place where we're starting to realize that like they say that we have like 60 crop rotations left before the soil is
Something like that,
useless
yeah.
unless we start doing things differently.
Right.
That is the cost. Like you're taking from nature constantly, doing
Yeah.
like monocrop agriculture. You're taking from nature. Like, oh, we need more corn, we need more beef,
more.
whatever it is. You need more of whatever that is, and it has a cost.
Yep. Eventually it has a cost.
Yeah. And so, man,
How do you stop it? You don't. I don't think you do.
well, yeah, because I've had this conversation before, and it's like, well, we still need to feed all these people and blah blah blah. It's like, well, maybe we shouldn't have gotten here because of the cost. Like the what we did to get here was wrong, and
Yeah.
maybe we should have never gotten here. And I'm not one of these people who it's like we need to lower the population of humanity, and like I'm not like saying we should all drive Teslas. I'm not on that team.
That can go
but
into like a whole like what do you call it? Like a that can go into like the American Heart Association, right? A lot of those studies that they've done, they've paid to make their like the sugar
Oh
industry,
yeah, the
right?
sugar industry.
You know,
Oh,
they
dude,
they pay to make their product more healthier than whatever the alternative was.
right. The
And
scientist is being bribed to make the study come out the way that these companies want them
yeah,
to.
yeah,
But yeah, that's like a whole other
that's
topic. I mean,
conspiracy
I'm
type
super
stuff.
into I'm super into like nutrition and that
Yeah,
whole world, so that's why
yeah.
I'm talking about
I think I
that.
think
But
I think America's starting to wake up, man. I think they are. I think Americans are starting to wake up. You know, with people like Joe Rogan and
I hope so.
who's the guy that his buddy that killed himself. I can't remember his name.
Whose buddy?
Joe Rogan's dude. He was on a Food Network or something like that. Anyway,
Oh, I know what you're talking about.
anyways, you know, those guys pushed for, you know, try to be as whole foods as possible and you know, meat based and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And not saying that vegan or vegetarian is bad, if whatever
I
fits
would
your
say
lifestyle.
I would say that veganism
With all the soy stuff,
it
and, you know,
doesn't
the
make sense.
byproduct. Yeah,
I mean, I'm sure I've gotten into that. Anyways, like
out of this whole podcast, that's what somebody's gonna clip.
right, yeah.
Ben's a dick.
Veganism. Yeah.
Anyways, we could talk about that all day long. It's
Yeah.
just but I finally I do think now that you know, I'm almost 40, and I think America is like really starting to wake up as far as like diets and stuff, and we're tired of being the epitome of obesity. Like, we are the poster child for obesity for the
Right.
world.
Mhm.
And I learned that with my travels in the Navy. You know, like, we are the big fat American, and we are going to eat and drink until we pass out.
Yeah.
And other countries are not like that. You know, they eat enough to sustain themselves and keep going.
Yeah.
And it's not just, oh, gluttony and binge eat and you know, just be bums all day and sit on the couch. So I do think America's waking up, which is a good thing. Hopefully my son's generation, my daughter's generation, they'll figure it out by then. Maybe turn the ship around a little bit,
yeah.
so to speak.
But yeah, with that, that's our
it.
time.
Yeah, that's it, man. Well, we appreciate it. Thanks for
I
listening.
really appreciate you coming out
man.
and talking about it.
Yeah, dude.
Talking about this lizard and the opportunity that you gave me to work on that.
For sure.
Things are on the up and up, and I think.
If you got monitor questions, guys, check me out on Instagram, Primitive Reptiles.
Yeah, I was gonna say, plug.
That's the only one I got. I do have a YouTube, and it's mainly just shorts, and I don't know where I want to go with that yet. But if you want to subscribe to that, go to it. But there's not too much new stuff on there, so maybe this will spark something for me. Who knows?
And I'm on Postmortem Arts
Yes.
on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. All
You're on way more than I am.
I try. I'm on TikTok too, and it might get banned soon. So
You doing dances?
no, I
Postmortem
posting
dances.
that.
All right, guys.
All right.
Appreciate it.
Yeah.